Chapter 571. War raged in Zhongzhou. Tianfu's army, which had been unstoppable, met with the most stubborn resistance from the alliance army. Between Tianluo City and Wanqing Pass, the armies of the two territories kept fighting. No one was willing to back down easily. In Jingfeng City, battle reports were sent to the Hall of Venerables one after another. The expressions of the human sovereigns were getting worse and worse. Zhongzhou couldn't hold on any longer. A month after the peace talks, all the sects had sent out all their forces. Together with the vanguard troops from the other three territories, they tried their best to stop Tianfu. However, the difference in strength between the two armies was too big. It was only a matter of time before they were defeated. Zhao Liusu stood up and asked, "When will the reinforcements from the other three territories arrive?" "At least a month," Venerable Li Shan replied. "What about the requests for help sent to Heavenly Music Parlor, Tianfu Mountain and Southwind Ridge? Did they reply?" Zhao Liusu asked. "The Lord of the Heavenly Music Pavilion does not see outsiders. The people I sent were directly blocked outside the Heavenly Music Valley by a woman. Tianfu Mountain has been sealed for several years for some unknown reason, and no one can go up. As for the remaining 7 sects, the supreme sages of 4 sects have agreed to come and help, while the other 3 have politely refused," Venerable Li Shan said in detail. 4. Zhao Liusu squinted her eyes. Since the start of the war, more than 10 human sovereigns had come from the other 3 territories. This was probably the limit of the 3 territories' help. It would be difficult to ask for more help in the future. Zhao Liusu turned her head and asked the young man in red, "Military advisor, we've done our best. How much longer do we have to hold on?" Beside the main seat, Ning Chen recovered from his contemplation and said slowly, "Enough. Before sunset tomorrow, the allied forces of all sects must withdraw from Wanqing Pass. In addition, Venerables, please be on standby at any time. I don't want to emphasize the same thing again and again. This is the last chance for the Central Plains. If you can't grasp it, please find someone else." Zhao Liusu looked at the Venerables and said coldly, "Tomorrow, if anyone dares to disobey the military advisor's orders, don't blame me for being ruthless." "Yes." The Venerables accepted the order and replied respectfully. After the meeting, the Venerables left one after another. Only Zhao Liusu, Ning Chen, and Ina were left in the main hall. Of course, the little girl could play on her own, and no one would disturb the other. "Military advisor, a month ago, you said that Heaven's Sanctum might be in urgent need of time. If Central Prefecture continues to prolong the war, is it feasible?" Zhao Liusu asked seriously. "Impossible." Ning Chen shook his head and said, "Dragging out the battle can only be used as a bargaining chip. It's not a feasible method. The reason why the Heavenly Mansion's army is in such a hurry to attack the Central Plains is most likely because there's a problem with the Heavenly Mansion star. However, the majority of the Heavenly Mansion's Xiantian forces have already been transferred to the Central Plains. Dragging out the battle will not only not benefit us, it will also infuriate the Heavenly Mansion." When Zhao Liusu heard this, she frowned slightly and said, "The Allied army's innate combat power has no advantage over Heaven's Sanctum. In addition, the Supreme's combat power is at a disadvantage. How can we turn this situation around? If we can't get along well, then we'll make use of the right time and the right place. We can't be limited by the inertia of our thinking in war. Although there aren't many things that can threaten the human sovereigns, it's not like there aren't any. We'll use whatever we have," Ning Chen said calmly. "Karmic luck, earth veins, laws, fate," Zhao Liusu said slowly. Ning Chen nodded and said, "After all, this war is being fought in the Central Plains. The right time and the right place are on the Central Plains side. Being good at using what we already have is more useful than any reinforcements. Although that's the case, it's hard to use karmic luck or earth veins. Even if they could be used, the Heavenly Mansion's human sovereigns wouldn't be so stupid as to send themselves to their deaths," Zhao Liusu said with a puzzled expression. "If they don't want to come, then just invite them. If the Alliance sovereigns are interested tomorrow night, you can go and watch the battle. There's no need to stay in competitive Peak City for now. I think that the Heavenly Minister won't be in the mood to pay attention to this place tomorrow night." Ningchen said calmly. In front of Wanqing Pass, the Allied army's leaders, who had been defeated time and time again, finally received orders from competitive Peak City to retreat. 6 human sovereigns appeared and blocked the Heavenly Mansion's army, covering the retreat of the Allied army. At Wanqing Pass, the Devil's Snare flowers stretched for thousands of feet. The black flower buds were so beautiful that people couldn't help but touch them. Boom! Thunder rumbled in the sky and dark clouds roiled, covering the setting sun. In the distance, a figure in a blue and white dress appeared. She looked at the red-robed youth beside her and said, "You owe me a favor." "Miss Bai, how can you ask for favors when friends help each other?" Ningchen smiled. "If you don't want to, then I can stop." Bai Yunlian raised his hand, and the roiling dark clouds in the sky immediately showed signs of dissipating. Seeing this, Ningchen immediately compromised. He helplessly said, "I'll agree to a favor." Within Wanqing Pass, the Allied army retreated. The 6 human sovereigns also retreated, no longer continuing to fight. Behind them, the Heavenly Mansion's army split into 3 groups. One of them quickly reached Wanqing Pass and took over the Central Plains #1 stronghold. Outside Wanqing Pass, Ningchen looked at the Heavenly Mansion's army and said, "Miss Bai, it's your turn." Bai Yinlian nodded. He raised his hand, and the dark clouds in the sky roiled. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and heavy rain poured down. At this moment, within Wanqing Pass, the budding Devil's Snare flowers were being watered by the rain mixed with Heavenly Craft spring water, and they bloomed one by one. The Devil's transformation bloomed, and a black mist curled up. It wasn't affected by the rain and spread out. At the same time, Devil's vines spread out, constantly searching for life and nutrients. This shocking scene was like the nightmare of the Devil Wheel Ocean. The Heavenly Mansion's army was shocked. The soldiers closest to the Devil's flowers were bound by the vines, and their vitality was instantly devoured. Destroy these flowers. Within the Heavenly Mansion's army, the 4 human sovereigns reacted and ordered. Once the order was given, the Heavenly Mansion's soldiers quickly destroyed the Devil's flowers, uprooting all the Devil's Snare flowers. "It's useless." Outside Wanqing Pass, Ningchen coldly smiled. Within the pass, the destroyed Devil's flowers were scattered all over the ground. Suddenly, a soldier staggered and vomited black blood before falling down powerlessly. Following that, more and more people fell to the ground as black blood flowed out of their mouths. Retreat! Seeing that the situation wasn't right, the 4 human sovereigns immediately gave the order to retreat. "We can't retreat." Hongyi walked over from outside Wanqing Pass and poured her yuan into her palm. In the next moment, the Yellow Spring seal opened, sealing off all paths of retreat. 6 human sovereigns appeared at the same time and used yuan spirit seals to seal the Heavenly Mansion's army. Within Wanqing Pass, the ground was covered in Devil's flowers, and the poisonous mist continued to spread. More and more soldiers were poisoned, and cries rang out everywhere. "Guard your yuan and qi. Protect your heart. Don't panic." Supreme Arcane shouted. He turned his palm and condensed essence energy to help the general beside him dispel the poison in his body. Hearing this, the Heavenly Mansion's army gradually stabilized and sat down cross-legged, circulating their yuan to resist the poisonous mist. "How is it?" Another Heavenly Abode Supremacy stepped forward and said with a grave expression, "The poison of these devil flowers isn't unstoppable, but the army is trapped here. As long as we can't get out, we'll be corroded by the poisonous mist. Sooner or later, we won't be able to hold on," said Sovereign Taishian. "It's fine. We just need to hold on for a little longer. The situation here can't be hidden from Minister of Heaven's eyes. Someone will come to rescue us soon," replied Venerable Tian Du in Eternal Heaven City. A battle report came. Xiao Bieli looked at it, and his expression turned cold. "Celestial Venerable Ling, it's your turn." "Yes." Purple light gathered, and Ling Tian appeared, accepting the order respectfully. After a moment, 5 figures rushed out of Eternal Heaven City. Ling Tian led the way, and the 4 human sovereigns followed him. In Wanqing Pass, the Heavenly Mansion's army was trapped. The 6 human sovereigns protected the Yellow Spring's divine seal, sealing off all paths of retreat. Within the divine seal, Black poisonous mist was faintly discernible, corroding every soldier in the Heavenly Mansion's army. The shadow of death covered the entire Wanqing Pass. At this moment, 5 extremely powerful figures quickly approached from afar. Outside the divine seal, the 6 human sovereigns looked at each other. 3 of them stopped and turned their palms to block the leader. "Back off." Celestial Venerable Ling waved her hand, and her vast true yuan shook the 3 human sovereigns back. Then, she swept past them and rushed towards Wanqing Pass. "The fish has taken the bait." In the distance, Hong Yi's lips curled into a cold smile, without a shred of human emotion. The nature of a devil was cruel. Ling Tian entered the battle, and the 6 human sovereigns couldn't stop him. The other 4 human sovereigns worked together to break the seal, and the Yellow Springs divine seal, which had lost the support of the supreme sovereigns, collapsed instantly. The 9 human sovereigns of the Heavenly Mansion gathered, and the 6 human sovereigns immediately retreated, not wanting to continue fighting. "Retreat," Celestial Venerable Ling said solemnly. "I've said it before, there's no retreat." As soon as he said that, the void shook, and Hong Yi descended from the sky with a green coffin on his back, attracting everyone's attention. "Marquis Jiming." The 9 human sovereigns recognized him, and their expressions darkened. With a bang, the green coffin landed on the ground. The moment it opened, a broken stone sword flew out, and a terrifying sword pressure surged out. Ning Chun hid behind the green coffin and used it as a cover. He slapped the hilt of Celestial Execution Sword, and it pierced the ground. Without a word, he ran away. Celestial Execution Sword vibrated, and a terrifying sword aura pierced thousands of feet into the ground. Under Wanqing Pass, the earth veins were destroyed, and they collapsed instantly. In the next moment, the earth energy soared into the sky, and Celestial Execution Sword flew out, absorbing the power of the earth veins. Thousands of sword auras exploded, engulfing the entire Wanqing Pass in an instant. Hell descended on the mortal world, and thousands of soldiers of the Heavenly Mansion exploded in the Celestial Execution Sword aura. Blood and chi filled the air, but they were immediately absorbed by the Celestial Execution Sword. Blood-colored sword lights fell like rain, and there was no way out. Outside Wanqing Pass, the 6 human sovereigns of the Alliance couldn't hide their shock. They looked at the red-clothed young man in front of them, and the fear in their eyes was unprecedentedly intense. Just now, if they hadn't obeyed orders and retreated a moment later, they probably wouldn't have been able to come out now. "Military advisor, when will you take back that stone sword?" Sovereign Li Shan stepped forward and asked. "Take it back." "Heh." Ning Chen smiled faintly and said, "I can't take it back. This place will be a forbidden land in the mortal world from now on." Chapter 572. Wanqing Pass was covered in a bloody mist and corpses were everywhere. The forbidden land that had appeared out of nowhere had destroyed everything within. There were forbidden lands in the human world, but they were all created by the heavens and earth. This was the first forbidden land that had been created by humans for thousands and thousands of years. The words "knowing destiny" once again shocked the world. A sharp sword was easy to find, but the sharpness of a sword was the true killing weapon. The executing immortal sword was already broken, and no longer had its former might. However, in the hands of a knowing destiny, it had become a true symbol of death. The eruption of the earth veins power had pushed the executing immortal sword's power to its limits. The earth veins power was endless, and the executing immortal forbidden land would never disappear. When the sun rose from the east, the howls in the forbidden land had completely disappeared. The first rays of the morning sun shone down, and within the bloody mist, there were scattered white bones everywhere. At this moment, even the 6 sovereigns outside Wanqing Pass couldn't bear to see this. It was the first time they had seen such a cruel scene. There's no need to regret it. Since the beginning of the war, there has been no righteous side. There's no need for fake kindness, said Ning Chen calmly as he looked at the forbidden land. The sovereigns were silent. After a long while, Sovereign Wenyang said, "Advisor, did the 9 sovereigns who went in all die? If sovereigns died so easily, this war would have ended long ago. They wouldn't have died so quickly, but they won't be able to come out again." Let's go back to competitive Peak City and prepare for the aftermath. After saying that, Ningchen didn't stay any longer. He turned and walked towards the north. The 6 human sovereigns looked at each other and immediately suppressed the fear in their hearts as they strode forward and followed him. They had already placed great importance on this advisor's ability, but they still underestimated him. After this battle, the Heavenly Province Army's strength had undoubtedly been greatly damaged. It would be difficult for them to have an overwhelming advantage in the future. Ningchen and the 6 sovereigns returned to competitive Peak City. The battle report from Wanqing Pass had already been sent back ahead of time. Zhao Liusu and the other sovereigns personally came out to welcome the 7 of them. Advisor, thank you. Zhao Liusu walked up and bowed respectfully. She knew very well that if it weren't for this person, the Central Plains wouldn't have made it this far. The sovereigns and the other sovereigns can take care of the following matters. I'm tired, so I'm going back to rest. Ningchen replied. He didn't enter the hall, and instead walked towards his palace. Up ahead, Qing Ning, who had been waiting for a long time, also left. Ningchen walked into Wenxian Palace. After sitting down, he picked up a cup of tea. His right hand trembled as he poured the tea into his mouth. Killing people isn't something to be happy about, is it? Qing Ning walked forward and poured him another cup of tea. This shouldn't be happening. Ningchen looked at his right hand, confusion in his eyes. He was a devil, so how could he be afraid? Nature is not so easy to hide. Qing Ning handed the tea to the former and said softly, "When Her Majesty and I picked you up and brought you to Weiyang Palace, you were simple and kind. We could see through you at a glance. Later on, you changed a lot. However, you just put on a mask. You haven't changed much. You still dislike war and hate killing people." "I'm a devil." Ningchen suppressed the throbbing in his heart that shouldn't be there. He took the tea and slowly said, "You only have the power and body of a demon. You haven't completely lost your humanity. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been trapped by the demonic tribulation, right?" Qing Ning replied, "I can't have my humanity. It will destroy me." Ningchen drank the tea in one gulp. "Where's your sword?" Qing Ning softly asked. Ningchen was puzzled, but he still took out Crimson Drill's sword. Qing Ning took the sword from his hand and pointed it at her own heart. "Stab it, and your demonic tribulation will pass." Ningchen suddenly stood up and threw the sword to the side. His expression was extremely gloomy. He sternly said, "I don't need this method. I can pass through the demonic tribulation myself." "You're too foolish." Qing Ning raised her hand and stroked the young man's cheek. A gentle smile appeared on her beautiful face as she said, "If there comes a day when you need strength, you don't have to be soft-hearted. In this world, you are the only person Sister Qing Ning cares about. Only you are the most important. Do you understand? I'll say it again. I can pass through the demonic tribulation myself." "I don't want to hear those words a second time." Ningchen's expression was unprecedentedly ugly. "All right, I won't mention it again." Qing Ning smiled and pulled back her hand. She turned and walked to a nearby room. "Where's Iner? She should still be sleeping. It was too dangerous last night, so I didn't bring her along." Ningchen calmed himself down. "Bring her around today. You have to give her some compensation for dragging her around every day." Qing Ning smiled. "Yes." Ningchen nodded his head and agreed. With a creak, the door was pushed open. Qing Ning walked into Er's room and saw that she was still sleeping soundly on the bed. She couldn't help but smile helplessly. No wonder didn't want to go back after coming out. What time was it now? She still hadn't gotten up. Wake up." Qing Ning walked over and softly called out. The little girl, who was still sleeping soundly, heard someone talking next to her ear. She immediately pulled the blanket over her little head and continued to sleep. "I can't wake her up." Ningchen walked over. Every time he tried to wake her up, it was always a huge problem. "It's all because you indulged her too much." Qing Ning softly reprimanded. From Mingyu to Qi to this girl, each one of them had been raised by this fellow like an ancestor. "I'm just imitating the habits of the phoenix body. If I change too much, people will suspect me," said Ningchen indifferently. Qing Ning couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She pulled the blanket aside and coaxed the girl up. "How old are you this year?" asked Qing Ning as she helped the girl put on her clothes. 12.5. Ina rubbed her eyes. Are you married to someone? Asked Qing Ning softly. Ina's face reddened, and she hastily shook her head. No. She's just a child. How could she be married to someone? Ningchen interrupted. What do you know? Qing Ning glared at him. 12 years old isn't a child. Furthermore, according to etiquette, you shouldn't be here right now. How much of the things I taught you in the palace have you memorized? Ningchen didn't dare say anything else. The palace was filled with complicated etiquette, male and female rules, and there were too many to count. It would probably take him an entire day to memorize them. If he really had to memorize these rules, it would be better for him to compete with that heaven minister. Qing Ning rubbed the girl's hair and said softly, Ina, your big brother Ning doesn't care about rules. However, in this world women are much harsher than men. In the future, you still have to pay attention to some rules. For example, go to bed at 2 and wake up at 5. Also, if your big brother Ning casually enters your room again, kick him out. Hearing this, Ina's large eyes lit up. She nodded vigorously and said, Okay. Ningchen listened from the side and didn't say a word. After putting on her clothes, Qing Ning helped Ina to freshen up. She tied 2 beautiful bows into her braids, making the already delicate little girl look even cuter. Ina looked at her reflection in the mirror and smiled happily. All right, let's go. Qing Ning held the girl's hand and smiled. Ina jumped down from the stool and looked at a certain person waiting by the side. She pouted and said, You're not allowed to drag me everywhere today. And I'm not going anywhere today. I'll go wherever you want me to go. Ningchen nodded and said, Indeed, he should compensate this lass. Running around these few days had also tormented this lass quite a bit. The 3 of them went out together and didn't care about the battle anymore. They held hands and walked towards the city. In front of the Hall of Venerables, Venerable Li Shan looked at Yin between the two and frowned slightly. He didn't know why, but he felt that something was wrong. Alliance Venerable, why does the military advisor always bring that little girl from the sword forging manor? Even for an important matter like the peace talks last time. This little girl was brought along, Venerable Li Shan asked. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. It's the military advisor's freedom to bring whoever he wants with him. If the military advisor is unhappy because of these small matters, it won't be good for anyone, Zhao Liusu warned. I understand. I'm just asking out of curiosity. I won't mention it in front of the military advisor, Venerable Li Shan replied. Zhao Liusu nodded and continued. Tell the others to be careful as well. Don't get carried away just because of a great victory, and put on airs in front of the military advisor again. It's true that the Central Plains won this time, but the strength of the 2 sides is only equal. I don't want to see competitive Peak City become the second Wanqing Pass, understand? Yes, Venerable Li Shan said respectfully. In the city, on the bustling streets, Qing Ning walked in front with Yin, while Ningchen carried something and followed behind. Countless people had experienced how terrifying a girl could be when she walked on the streets. Ningchen wasn't the first, nor would he be the last. He couldn't afford to offend Qing Ning, whether it was her original body, phoenix body, or demon body. As for Yin, he also couldn't afford to offend her when she was with Qing Ning. On the other side of the street, Shi Piaoxiu, who had just returned from running errands, smiled when she saw the 3 of them. She said, Senior apprentice sister, Junior apprentice sister's cultivation has been progressing slower and slower since we left the mountain. Don't act recklessly. The Marquis of Jiming isn't a great evil person, and has done a lot of good deeds for the world. No matter what your intentions are, if you attack him, you'll be going against the mountain's rules. Bai Lingling warned again. Great evil? That depends on what criteria you use. He turned Wanqing Pass into a forbidden area on his own. If that isn't great evil, then there really isn't any great evil, Shi Piaoxiu chuckled. If he didn't do that, then the war would have continued endlessly. That's not a reason for you to attack him, Bai Lingling said in a low voice. Senior apprentice sister, I don't care what the reason is. What I care about is whether or not junior apprentice sister can become a sovereign in this lifetime. As long as the Marquis of Jiming is alive, that possibility doesn't exist, Shi Piaoshu's smile faded, and she said calmly. Junior apprentice sister is different from us. You can't just sever your bonds with the mortal world. If you forcefully sever them, who knows what will happen? You can't act recklessly, Bai Lingling said seriously. Shi Piaoshu was about to speak again when suddenly, an extremely powerful aura appeared in the distance. The terrifying pressure caused the entire world to tremble. Chapter 573. On the streets of competitive Peak City, Ning Chen, who was shopping with Qing Ning and Yin felt a powerful pressure coming from afar, and his expression changed immediately. Heavenly Mansion Star Venerable, Chao Tianxi. At this moment, all the strong practitioners in the 5 regions felt this power that surpassed the limits of the mortal realm, and their hearts sank. The worst-case scenario still happened. Qing Ning turned around and said softly, Go, I'll take care of Yin here. Sorry. Ning Chen spoke apologetically, and then his figure flashed as he swiftly flashed towards the hall of revered seniors. Yin pouted and raised her head. Sister Qing Ning, he didn't keep his word. Didn't he say he would accompany me today? Yin be good. Your big brother Ning suddenly has something important to do. Sister Qing Ning will accompany you. Qing Ning said softly with a gentle expression. In the Hall of Venerables, all the human supremes in competitive Peak City gathered. Red light gathered and Ning Chen appeared. He didn't waste any time and ordered, Leave 3 supremes to guard the city. The rest of you follow me to Wanqing Pass. Yes. The supremes respectfully accepted the order. Wanqing Pass, immortal execution forbidden land. The void shook, and a beautiful figure appeared. She wore a moon-white dress, and her black jade-like hair fell behind her. Her beauty was unparalleled, and she didn't wear any makeup. She was like a goddess from the 9 heavens, giving people an unapproachable feeling. Heavenly Mansion Star Venerable, Chao Tianxi, finally arrived in the 5 regions. He stepped into the sky and entered the immortal execution forbidden land. In the sky full of sword energy, 3 figures struggled to hold on and were about to reach their limits. Chao Tianxi waved his hand and opened up a path of light to receive them. Outside the Wanqing Pass, several figures arrived. 10 9 Heavens Supremes had arrived at the immortal execution forbidden ground. After a moment, 4 people walked out. Chao Tianxi looked at the 10 Supremes in front of him and said plainly, Celestial Venerable Ling, take the 2 of them and leave first. Leave this to me. Yes. Celestial Venerable Ling accepted the order and quickly left with Tai Xian and Tian Du, who were heavily injured. Stop them. Ning Chen said coldly in front of the 10 Supremes. Yes. On Mount Li, Supremacy Xianzhen, and the other Supremes accepted the order and quickly chased after the 3. At this moment Chao Tianxi moved. His white silk fluttered like a white rainbow, blocking everyone's path. None of you can get through. Don't waste your energy, Chao Tianxi said calmly. Heavenly Mansion Star Venerate, it's really a pity that you didn't die, said Ning Chen seriously. Jiming Marquis, I didn't kill you on Tianfu Planet. But it's not too late to kill you now. As soon as he finished speaking, Chao Tianxi's figure flashed and rushed forward. His palm condensed the power of wind and clouds and slammed out. The battle began. Ning Chen retreated while the 10 sovereigns advanced. They joined forces to block the Heavenly Manor Star Sovereign. There was a loud rumble, and heaven and earth tilted. The 10 venerables all took a few steps back, and the corners of their mouths were dyed red. There was a clear disparity in strength. 1 against 10, the human supremes were defeated. Outside the battlefield, Ning Chen coldly watched the battle. He didn't believe that Chao Tianxi could recover so quickly. If the Hell King's enchantment could be broken so easily, then the title Hell King would be undeserved. Chao Tianxi glanced at the red-clothed young man outside the battlefield and said coldly, Jiming Marquis, your strength shouldn't be inferior to a human supremacy's. Why don't you attack? I'm just a military counselor in charge of planning. Fighting is not my specialty. Lord Star Venerate, you can ignore my existence, said Ning Chen as he waved his hand, and a white fan appeared. Chao Tianxi snorted coldly. He turned around and used his palms to block wave after wave of attacks. Even she couldn't completely ignore the existence of a top-notch swordsman. This man's mind was really deep and frightening. Everyone be careful. Lord Star Venerate has extraordinary attainments in the law of space and the law of ice. If you don't cooperate, I may have to collect your corpses, said Ning Chun as he watched the battle. Void destruction. Chao Tianqi's eyes turned cold. He raised his hand and pressed down. The void in front of him collapsed. The 10 sovereigns, who were reminded, immediately turned into a defensive position and joined forces to block the attack. With a shocking sound, the 10 sovereigns were dyed red in the collapsed void again. They had avoided the threat of death. Chao Tianqi used his vital essence again. The white silk around him fluttered. Snow fell from the sky. Extremely cold air spread out and turned the area within 1,000 miles into a world of ice and snow. Fire burning the city wall. When Yang Zuan stepped forward and used his extreme Yang technique to resist the law of ice falling from the sky, the other 9 sovereigns leaped forward and used their techniques to help Wen Yangzuan. The next moment, the sky and the earth were divided into 2. A sea of fire rose and formed a grid in the sky full of ice and snow. After a moment of stalemate, a purple-clothed girl appeared in the distant void. She waved her hand, and a dark moon was drawn. A black light shot into the sky. In an instant, a black arrow broke through the space and came before the star venerate of the heavenly mansion. The arrow came suddenly without warning and broke into the battle in the blink of an eye. Chao Tianqi's eyes turned cold. He raised his hand and opened the prison of heaven and earth, trapping the arrow. However, after the first arrow, 2 more followed. They chased after the stars and the moon, pressing toward the star venerate of the heavenly mansion. The path of the secular world, one ultimate sword. At this moment the void shook again. The chief of the Taibai Palace appeared in the battle. He only had 1 arm and 1 sword. The Taibai Palace's ultimate sword appeared. The path of the secular world appeared. In the terrifying torrent, the path sword cut through the ice and snow. The path of the path appeared again, after the battle at the Grand Sky Moon Peak. Bodhi Heart Meditation, one thought to attain Bodhi. At the same time, on the other side of the battle, the Buddha technique appeared. The swastika shone brightly and rain fell. One thought to attain Bodhi, one thought to attain Great Tao. The 4 attacks cut off all paths of retreat. Outside the battle, Ning Chen stepped forward. Before he made a move, his sword will had already spread. How dare you? With a soft shout, Chao Tianqi's eyes shone brightly. His vital essence was released. Within 1,000 miles, the wind and snow howled and the space collapsed. Heavenly bright snow, chasing waves sinking into sorrow. With a loud bang, the snow waves surged with Chao Tianqi as the center. They spread rapidly. The entire sky turned into a sea of ice and snow. The white waves drowned everything in it. Monster! Outside the battle, Ning Chun withdrew his move and retreated quickly, avoiding the center of the storm. In the battle, the 10 venerables, Bodhi, and Taibai Manor's lord were all sent flying by the turbulent snow waves. Their blood spilled over 100 feet, and they were all heavily injured. Retreat! The situation was unfavorable. Ning Chun immediately ordered the troops to retreat. The venerables accepted the order, and no longer lingered on the battle. They immediately retreated. In the blink of an eye, the venerables left. Only a pale figure stood quietly in the battle. The moment the wind and snow dissipated, a drop of blood silently dripped from the corner of her mouth. Just as Ning Chun expected, breaking the Netherworld King's barrier was not an easy task. Even though he used the power of 1 star to cast the star soul-flowing fire, the backlash from breaking the Netherworld King's barrier still caused Chao Tianqi to suffer unimaginable injuries. After being unconscious for half a month and resting for several months, he finally managed to suppress his injuries and rushed to Wanqing Pass to save people at the most critical moment. In competitive Peak City, the human venerables returned one after another. As soon as they landed, they all vomited blood. An expert who stepped on the immortal Tao was actually so terrifying. Ning Chun walked forward and said calmly, "Everyone, go back and treat your injuries first. The Alliance venerables, and I will take care of this place for now." The venerables accepted the order and left one by one. "Advisor, what do we do now?" Zhao Liusu asked with a heavy expression. "Ask for help," Ning Chun said slowly. All the human venerables from the 3 regions are here. The rest have already been rejected. It'll be difficult to invite them, Zhao Liusu said seriously. Things are different now. It's not up to them whether they come or not, Ningchen said indifferently. What do you mean? Zhao Liusu frowned slightly. Without the Heavenly Sect's star venerables, the Heavenly Sect only has the ability to contend with 2 or 3 regions at most. The venerables still want to be lucky, so it's normal that they can't invite them. However, now that the Heavenly Sect's star venerables have appeared, it's not impossible for them to conquer the 5 regions. When the Alliance venerables sent people to invite them, they directly said that if they don't come, the Central Plains sects will give up the Central Plains. Zhao Liusu was silent for a moment. After a while she said, Advisor, have you ever thought that there are no peak Khanate experts in the 5 regions? Even if they come, they won't be able to contend with the Heavenly Sect's star venerables. Contend? There's no need. Ningchen smiled coldly. Although the Heavenly Sect's star venerables have absolute power, the biggest difference between her and the Nether King is that the Nether King descended to destroy the world. He doesn't have any weaknesses to exploit. Chao Tianqi is different. She's a star venerables. She came to the inner realm to conquer at least 1 region for the Heavenly Sect. Since she's worried, she's not absolutely invincible. Advisor, please speak clearly. Zhao Liusu didn't understand. Alliance venerables. Do you think that the Heavenly Sect's star venerables will dare to act without any scruples if the entire Heavenly Sect's army is in danger of being buried in the Central Plains? She's the only one with absolute power. It might be difficult to defeat or eliminate her, but it shouldn't be difficult to pin her down, Ningchen said indifferently. What do we do after that? With her around, we're still at a disadvantage in this war, Zhao Liusu said worriedly. We have to take things one step at a time. Alliance venerables, what you need to do now is to invite as many human sovereigns as possible from the other 3 regions. No matter how powerful an advisor is, he can't plan his next step without knowing the strength of his side, right? Ningchen smiled. At the same time, moonlight gathered in Tianheng City. Chao Tianqi walked out. Xiao Bieli, Venerable Dong Sun, Venerable Zhenyang, and the others all bowed, welcoming the Star Venerable's return. Minister of Heaven, you've worked hard these days. Chao Tianqi glanced at Xiao Bieli, who was the leader of the Venerables. Xiao Bieli has failed the Star Venerables, Xiao Bieli said with a heavy expression. It's not your fault. Chao Tianqi shook his head. I've learned a lot about the knowledge Marquis. Someone who can send the Nether King back won't be easy to deal with. The war has only officially begun now. You'll have plenty of time to fight him in the future. Yes, Xiao Bieli said respectfully. All right everyone. From today onwards, let's temporarily forget about our previous failures. Minister of Heaven, you're the minister of the Heavenly Sect, so planning the war is your responsibility. As for what we should do next, please quickly arrange it, said Chao Tianqi calmly. Understood. Xiao Bieli respectfully accepted the order and stood up. His eyes were resolute once more. Chapter 574. On the Central Plains battlefield, the Heaven's Sanctum's army went around Wanqing Pass, which had become a forbidden area, and continued north. In the battle at Wanqing Pass, the Heaven's Sanctum lost 30% of its Khanate forces, and 6 Supremes died and 3 were injured. Fortunately, Chao Tianqi returned in time and stabilized the terrified army, causing the balance of the war to tilt towards the Heaven's Sanctum once again. Apart from the change in their peak forces, Chao Tianqi's return allowed the Heaven's Sanctum's minister to no longer defend Tianheng City, and he was able to appear on the front lines for the first time. The shift in the battle situation came so quickly. After Xiao Bieli appeared on the battlefield, the 2 armies worked together and cooperated well. In just 10 days, they conquered 7 cities and defeated the various sects in the Central Plains. In the meeting hall of Jingfeng City, the Supremes were still recovering from their injuries, and there were only 3 or 4 people in the hall. Zhao Liusu sat on the main seat, looking at the battle report from the front lines with a serious expression. Alliance Supremacy, where's the military advisor? Why isn't he here? Supremacy Qing Yu asked. To prevent the Heaven's Sanctum Star Venerables from attacking the city, the military advisor and the Taibai Palace Lord are working together to set up a formation in the city, Zhao Liusu replied. Will it work? Supremacy Qingyu asked worriedly. At this time, we can only trust the military advisor, Zhao Liusu said seriously. In the city, Ning Chun and the Taibai Palace Lord worked together to set up a formation. Ning Chun even invited Bai Lingling through Qing Ning, and then Shi Piaoshu came as well. Of course, there was also Yin who was forced to follow them. The Taibai Palace leaned towards the Dao sect, while the West Jade Mountain was undoubtedly the Orthodox Buddhist sect. Ning Chun had raided the Buddha Mountain, destroyed the Confucian sect, and cultivated the Dao sect's secret techniques. He was familiar with the techniques and formations of the three sections. Although he couldn't be considered to have mastered them, he definitely knew a little. However, knowing a little and knowing how to use it were two different things. Thus, Ning Chun invited two people, who were both Dao sect and Buddhist sect cultivators. Jiming Marquis, our Buddhist sect's formations are different from Taibai Palace's Dao sect's formations. It's very difficult to combine them, and it's not easy to increase their power, Bai Lingling said seriously. The two of you can continue to set up the formation. Leave the rest to me, Ning Chun said seriously. The Taibai Palace Lord and Bai Lingling nodded and set up the formation. Ning Chun, the difference between the Buddhist and Taoist formations is too great. It's almost impossible to fuse them together. This is just a waste of time, said Qing Ning. There's no need to fuse them. It's fine as long as you can each display your own strength. If my original body was here, perhaps it would be even better. But now there's no other way. Let's just treat a dead horse as if it were still alive. Being prepared is always better than not being prepared, replied Ning Chun. Haven't we already sent people to Chongling? Qing Ning asked in confusion. After the Phoenix Avatar left last time, the female supreme sealed off Chongling. Before she reaches perfection, I fear no one can enter Chongling, Ning Chun said helplessly. How unfortunate. Qing Ning sighed softly. That female supreme's strength was extraordinary. Even her master, who was the third head of the Buddhist sect, did not dare to underestimate her. If they could invite her, she would be a great help to the alliance. Big Sister Piaosu, why are you here? Not far away, the two idlers, Yin and Shi Piaoshu, were having a boring conversation. To accompany your sister Lingling. That's right, Yin. Why does your big brother Ning drag you along wherever he goes? Shi Piaoshu asked casually. I don't know either. Yin shook her head and said, ever since big brother Ning took me out of Sword Forge Villa, it has been like this. Since I have nothing to do, I will take you along. Actually, big brother Ning is very good to me. Ha! Shi Piaoshu smiled faintly. She really could not tell that this Jiming Marquis, whose hands were covered in blood in both legends and reality, was a person who cared for women. Yin, how did you meet? Shi Piaoshu asked again. Yin thought and said, for years ago, Red Lotus Demon took me away from Sword Forge Villa. It was big brother Ning and big sister Bai who saved me. That's how we met. Hearing this, Shi Piaoshu's eyes narrowed slightly. For years ago, Red Lotus Demon appeared out of nowhere in Central Plains. But at the same time, another demon appeared. In the end, when the world was punishing the demons, Zhao Liusu and Tianji City concluded that Jiming Marquis was Red Lotus Demon, and Red Lotus Sword was in Jiming Marquis' hands. However, the situation back then was too complicated. It was hard to tell whether it was true or false. Logically speaking, once one became a demon, it was impossible to turn back. But Jiming Marquis, who came out of demonic Wheel C, was clearly not a demon. The truth was probably only known by Jiming Marquis. Perhaps little junior sister also knew something. From day to sunset, it took an entire day for the two of them to finish setting up the formation. Even though they were two Supreme Being experts at this moment, their faces turned abnormally pale, and they had no choice but to return to rest for a while. Ning Chun, I'm going back to sleep. After a boring day, Yin pouted and walked forward. Ning Chun came back to his senses. He almost forgot that this little girl was still here. He smiled apologetically and said softly, I'm sorry. After big brother Ning finishes his work, I'll take some time to accompany you. You have to keep your word, Ina emphasized. I have to keep my word. Ningchen nodded. Then I'll go back first. Ina pouted and left. Qing Ming accompanied her and sent the little girl back first. After an hour, Qing Ming came back again. Ningchen turned around and asked, sleeping? Yes. Qing Ming nodded and sighed softly. It's been hard on this little girl. She has to accompany you every day. Ningchen was silent. Although the phoenix body gave him part of the phoenix origin to cover up his demon aura, the lack of human aura couldn't be replenished by the phoenix origin. He had no choice but to bring Ina along. Don't think too much. Ina never said anything. This little girl is actually very sensible. Let's deal with the heavenly mansion star venerate first. If there's a chance, we'll think of a way to compensate her, Qing Ming said softly. Yes. Ningchen nodded and moved his right hand. Light overflowed, and his figure moved between the Taoist and Buddhist formations. There were thousands of layers of divine restrictions, and the entire competitive peak city was divided into two. Sister Qing Ming, do you still remember the formation that Senior Dao Kuei and teacher used to fight against the Nether King? Ningchen turned around and asked softly. I've seen it. My attainment in this area is too different, so I can't remember much, Qing Ming replied. I didn't see that battle, but when I was in the belly of the Taotai, I personally experienced Senior Dao Kuei's tactical deployments several times. Unfortunately, the tactical deployments I saw were not offensive. Therefore, I can only infer according to reason, and see if I can use the tactical deployments in the Taibai Mansion and the West Jade Mountain to try to transform the tactical deployments I remember into offensive ones. Since Sister Qing Ming has seen Senior Dao Kuei's deployment, you can help me observe it. If there is any obvious deviation, please remind me as soon as possible, Ningchen said seriously. I understand. Be careful. Qing Ming replied with a serious look. Ningchen nodded and didn't say anything else. He put his fingers together and condensed his qi. The divine restrictions of the underworld were activated in all directions. In competitive Peak City, the Taoist and Buddhist formations were also slowly recovering. Golden and green light rose, resonating with each other. At the side, Qing Ming paid full attention to the operation of the formation. She didn't dare to be distracted. At this moment, purple light gathered not far away, and a purple-robed girl appeared. She looked at the red-robed young man and said, Advisor, let me test the formation. Ningchen frowned and said, No, you're the leader of the alliance. If something happens, the entire alliance will be in chaos. Even if we want to test the formation, it won't be your turn. Then I'll do it. As soon as he said that, a golden light appeared and Bodhi appeared. Oh, Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, Supreme Bodhi, aren't you worried that I'll use the power of the formation to take revenge? If Marquis Jiming was a narrow-minded person, he wouldn't have agreed to help Central Prefecture fight against Heaven's Sanctum, Bodhi said calmly. Jiming isn't a gentleman, but he doesn't want to be a villain. If I want to kill you, I'm not in a hurry. Enter the formation. I hope your Buddha will protect you, Ningchen said indifferently. Chapter 575. In competitive Peak City, the night sky shone. Under the moon, the Knowing Destiny formation opened. Azure and golden light rose, forming the peak Taoist formation of the past. Within the formation, Bodhi circulated his cultivation to the extreme, resisting the reincarnation power of the grand formation. At the eye of the formation, the Knowing Destiny formation and Qing Ming observed the formation. Divine restrictions spread out, separating the two formations, not allowing them to clash. In the next moment, the entire grand formation began to rotate. With the divine restrictions as the boundary, the Taoist and Buddhist halves were separated. The golden and azure lights reflected the 9 heavens and the moon. Bodhi tested the formation. The indestructible golden body shone with Buddhist light, blocking the 2 grand formations of reincarnation. Something's wrong. At that moment, Qing Ming said in a serious tone. Ningchen waved his hand and withdrew the formation. He looked over and said, What's wrong? You used the Buddhist's hard force as yang, and the Taoist's soft force as yin to set up the formation. It should be a good method. However, Although Dao Kuei's yin-yang formation coexisted with yin and yang, it wasn't so clearly opposed. The current formation seems to have two formations coexisting, but its power is actually weaker than a single Buddhist or Taoist formation. Qing Ning reminded according to her memories. Coexisting, not opposing. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He raised his hand, and a gap appeared in the divine restrictions. The two formations rotated and merged. In an instant, intense vibrations sounded out. The Taoist and Buddhist formations collided and melted. Within the formation, Bodhi was forced back several steps by the collision. His blood and qi churned. Seeing this, Ning Chen waved his hand again, separating the two formations. His previous guess was correct. Forcefully merging the two formations was impossible. However, if they didn't merge, how could they use the power of the two formations at the same time? Ning Chen couldn't figure it out. He glanced at Bodhi and said calmly, "That's all for today. Amitabha. If the knowing destiny Marquis has thought it through, just send someone to inform me." Subhoodie performed a Buddhist salute, then turned and left. Advisor, the battle at the front dash, Zhao Liusu walked up and said, "Don't bother me. You handle the battle first." Ning Chen interrupted the former, and walked away with an irritated expression. Qing Ning followed. When she passed by Zhao Liusu, she said softly, "There are priorities. One is the Heavenly Palace Star Sovereign, and the other is the Heavenly Minister. He can only deal with one of them. Unless it's absolutely necessary, think of a solution for the front lines." "Okay." Zhao Liusu nodded gently and replied, "Wenxian Palace." Ning Chen poured himself a cup of tea, and finished it in one gulp. And then he sat down irritably, and forced himself to continue thinking. He really couldn't figure out how the phoenix body could endure sitting in the study of the Marquis of Jiming's mansion for days and nights, thinking about things without sleep. "You exposed yourself just now." Qing Ning walked into the hall, and arrived behind him. She stretched out her hand and gently massaged his temples. "Sorry, I couldn't hold myself back for a moment," Ning Chen said in a deep voice. "Don't worry. Everyone gets frustrated sometimes. Zhao Liusu shouldn't be too suspicious. Just be more careful in the future," Qing Ning said softly. Ning Chen nodded. In the Hall of Respect, Zhao Liusu came back and sat on the main seat. Her eyes flashed. Just now, Marquis Jiming really didn't act like Marquis Jiming. The Marquis Jiming she knew was calm, smart, and would never show his negative emotions in front of others. After coming out of the Devil Will See, Marquis Jiming was indeed different. In the Central Continent battlefield, the pace of the Heavenly Province army became faster and faster. After Xiao Bieli took command of the army, he was no longer the minister of the Heavenly Province. Instead, he transformed into a battle-hardened general and defeated the Alliance army again and again. In front of the Heaven's Abode army, Xiao Bieli looked at the boundless central plains, and his eyes flashed. Soon, if he had a little more time, he would definitely be able to establish a place for the Heaven's Abode to live. "Minister of Heaven." A guard walked over and bowed respectfully. "How is it? Is Jiming Marquis still in Vanguard City?" Xiao Bieli asked. "He hasn't left at all," the guard replied. Xiao Bieli heard this and squinted his eyes. "Jiming Marquis, what are you thinking? Do you really think these people can stop the advance of the Heavenly Province army?" At the same time, in Eternal Heaven City, Chao Tianxi had been in seclusion for a few days. In order to save Celestial Venerable Ling and the others, he entered the immortal execution Forbidden Ground and fought with the Venerables of the Inner Realm. The Heavenly Province Star Venerable, who had yet to recover from his old injuries, had to go into seclusion temporarily. A strong practitioner of the immortal Tao was in seclusion, which gave the Inner Realm precious time to react. Although it was short, it was precious. In Vanguard City, Ning Chen didn't care about the battle for 3 days. The only thing he did every day was try to merge the two formations. However, every attempt ended in failure. The opposition of yin and yang was the law of heaven and earth. Dao Kuei could use formations to refine yin and yang, but that didn't mean others could do it. In the tens of thousands of years of history, there was only one Dao Kuei. This was the truth. Ning Chen was extraordinary, and had done well enough. However, The difference between his attainments in formations and Dao Kuei's was still immeasurable. No one was perfect, and no one could be good at everything. Jiming was the same. In the cold night the cold wind blew. For 3 days, Ningchen stood quietly in the city with Qing Ning beside him. Not far away, the great white prefecture master, Bai Lingling, and Venerable Bodhi were waiting. They never left, waiting for Ningchen's orders. However, for 3 days, Ningchen didn't give any orders. He just kept trying and failing again and again. Beside the two of them, Yin'er sat in boredom. Her 2 slender legs kicked here and there, and her big eyes looked at this and that. When she was tired, she went back to sleep. When she woke up, she would run over and didn't disturb anyone. After thinking for a long time, Ningchen looked at Yin'er from the corner of his eyes. He thought about it and squatted down. Looking at the bored little girl in front of him, he said softly, "Yin'er, I'll give you a riddle. If you guess it correctly, you'll get a reward." "What reward?" Yin'er's eyes lit up. She ignored the question and asked about the reward first. "What reward do you want?" Ningchen asked with a gentle expression. Yin'er thought hard for a moment, then stretched out 2 white and tender fingers and said, "I want 2 wishes." After saying that, the little girl couldn't help but grin happily. If she had 2 wishes, she could make 1 wish first, then use the remaining wish to make 2 more wishes, then use 1 more wish, and the remaining wish to make 2 more wishes. If this continued, she would have many more wishes. Ningchen saw Yin'er's bright smile, and immediately guessed what she was thinking. However, he didn't point it out. With a smile he said, "Okay, but you have to guess the riddle correctly first." "Tell me," Yin'er said crisply. Ningchen took a tree branch and broke it into 2, then stuck it into the ground. He then drew a line between the 2 branches and said, "There are 2 people. The person on the left is always in the night, and the person on the right is always in the day. The night and day on both sides can't be changed. Is there any way to make the person in the night feel the day, and the person in the day feel the night?" Yin'er raised her head and thought for a moment. She stretched out her finger and drew a circle beside the 2 branches and said, "The person on the left has to light a very bright candle, and the person on the right has to enter a very dark room." Ningchen was startled at first, then he suddenly stood up. A light flashed in his eyes. He was too stupid to force himself to do something that he couldn't do. He was really looking for trouble for himself. "Did I get it right?" Yin'er pouted and raised her head to ask. "That's right, Yin'er is really smart. Much smarter than your big brother Ning." Ningchen came back to his senses and rubbed the little girl's hair with a smile. "Have you thought it through?" Qing Ning asked softly. "Yes." Ningchen nodded and said, "I thought too much before. It was Yin'er who reminded me. Since I can't make the yin and yang of the 2 large arrays merge, or even rotate, then there's no need to waste time on this. Just create a pair of opposite yin and yang in the 2 large arrays." "How?" Qing Ning didn't understand. "Let Bai Lingling and the Taibai Mansion Lord enter the 2 large arrays with opposite properties. Bai Lingling will use the Buddhist power to inject into the Taoist array, while the Taibai Mansion Lord will use the Taoist power to inject into the Buddhist array. The 2 people's power won't be enough to change the properties of the entire large array. The biggest possibility is that they will be assimilated by their respective arrays," Ningchen replied. Qing Ning frowned and said, "It sounds feasible, but it won't be easy to actually do it. Be careful." "I understand. Sister Qing Ning, please continue to watch the arrays for me," Ningchen reminded her, and looked at the 3 people not far away. He said calmly, "The 3 of you should have heard the method I just said. Please." The 3 nodded and entered the arrays. "Yin'er, sit there from now on. Don't run around." Ningchen turned around and sternly reminded her. "Okay," Yin'er replied obediently. After reminding her, Ningchen condensed his qi and activated his phoenix origin to activate the 2 large arrays. In an instant, green and gold lights rose again. "Taibai Mansion Lord, Miss Lingling, it's your turn," Ningchen said the moment the arrays were activated. At the center of the formation, the Palace Lord of the Taibai Palace and Bai Lingling channeled their powers at the same time. 2 types of powers with completely different attributes poured into the formation, and in an instant, the Tao and Buddha formations shone brilliantly, illuminating the dark night like it was daytime. In between the two arrays, the Yellow Springs restriction opened and separated the two types of power with opposite properties. Ning Chun was in the Yellow Springs restriction. When he felt the power coming from both sides, a strange look flashed through his eyes. He had guessed correctly. In the two arrays, there was a hint of softness in the extreme firmness. On the other side, there was a hint of firmness in the extreme firmness. In an instant, the firmness was assimilated by the extreme firmness. Ning Chun raised his hand, and many divine restrictions were activated. The entire large array started to rotate. The Taiji yin and yang appeared, and the yin and yang fishes swam. In the center of the two arrays, the divine restrictions gradually dissipated. The Taoist and Buddhist powers that were originally incompatible with each other actually reached an ingenious balance at this moment. In the sky above Jingfeng City, the green and gold Taiji diagrams appeared. There was yang and yin and yang. The cycle of reincarnation rotated, and the array of blasphemy of the gods reappeared. In the distance, in front of the Hall of Venerables, Zhao Liusu looked at the shocking scene in the sky. She couldn't hide the shock in her eyes. Even though the formation was created with the help of the Taoist and Buddhist supremes, it still couldn't change the fact that the formation was destroyed. The Marquis of Knowledge in Martial Arts. Chapter 576. In Jingfeng City, the yin-yang formation was completed. The yin-yang fish swam around knowing destiny. Green and gold light lit up the night sky. In Zhongzhou, many human supremes looked at Jingfeng City in shock. In the camps of the two armies, Xiao Bieli walked out of the commander's tent. He looked at the sky in the north and squinted his eyes. In Tianheng City, Chao Tianxi, who was still in seclusion, felt a strong pressure from afar. He opened his eyes. In an instant the space shook. A star venerable appeared in the sky and dashed towards the north. In Jingfeng City, beside Ning Chun, Qing Ning looked at the yin-yang formation in the sky with a serious expression. The heavenly mansion star venerable might be here soon, Qing Ning reminded him. Yes, Ning Chun nodded. Such a big movement couldn't be hidden from the heavenly mansion star venerable. Chao Tianxi wouldn't give him a chance to complete the formation. This battle was unavoidable. Be careful. Qing Ning didn't say anything else. She just instructed him, and then took Yiner's hand and left. Military advisor. A purple light flashed and Zhao Liusu appeared. Prepare for battle, Ning Chun said calmly. Zhao Liusu nodded. The purple light dissipated, and she left temporarily. The yin-yang formation had just been completed. The heavenly mansion star venerable was about to arrive. A tense atmosphere spread in the city. Except for a few severely injured human supremes, everyone else appeared in the Hall of Venerables to prepare for the upcoming battle. Everyone, our mission is to stand guard outside. If the formation is broken, we'll replace military advisor and take over the battle immediately. Zhao Liusu looked at the human supremes and said seriously. Yes. The human supremes accepted the order and replied respectfully. In Wenxian Palace, Qing Ning sent Yiner back. She walked to the front of the palace and looked into the distance. She couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. Ning Chen's current condition wasn't suitable for battle, especially when he had to hide the fact that he had a demonic body. In Zhongzhou, a white figure dashed past. It was so fast that it was shocking. It was so close yet so far. It was heading north at extreme speed. He's here. In the yin-yang formation in Jingfeng City, Ning Chun looked to the south. He waved his hand, and the sunly fire appeared. White light rose and sword intent appeared again. At the same time, Chao Tianxi descended from the sky. The light was dazzling. Jiming Marquis, it really is you, said Chao Tianxi coldly. Nice to meet you, Ning Chun replied. Your formation isn't bad, so I can't let you live. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a flash of light. Chao Tianxi entered the formation and struck out with his palm. With the imminent danger, Ning Chun took half a step forward. The great formation shone brilliantly. The two formations rotated and quickly devoured the former's palm power. The power of yin-yang? Chao Tianxi's eyes flashed with a strange light. He raised his hand and the void swirled. A huge black vortex appeared and pressed down on the yin and yang formation. At the center of the formation, Ning Chen flipped his palm and guided the power of the formation to block the descending black vortex. At this moment, an earth-shattering collision sound rang out, and the chaotic airflow collapsed and spread out in all directions. Inside the Taoist and Buddhist formations, Bai Lingling and the Lord of Taibai Prefecture were also affected by the aftershocks. They both took half a step back, and the corners of their mouths were instantly dyed red. Seeing this, Chao Tianqi channeled his palm essence again, gathering the wind and clouds in all directions, increasing the power of his attack by 3 times. Ning Chen mobilized the power of the Great Formation, and the 2 formations rotated to block the former's palm power. This was an earth-shattering battle. The yin and yang formation was opened, and the 2 venerables held each other. Ning Chen used the power of yin and yang to fight the celestial treader. The shocking aftermath filled every corner of the Great Formation, frightening the gods and Buddhas. Jiming Marquis, you've used power beyond your limits. How long do you think you can hold on? Chao Tianqi looked at the 3 in the formation and said coldly, Star Venerable, you're so perceptive. I can't hold on for long. But how long can a Star Venerable keep attacking like this? At this moment, if Jiming Marquis was still a Star Venerable in his prime, I might have surrendered without a fight, Ning Chen said with a smile. It's useless to argue. Jiming Marquis die. Chao Tianqi flipped his hands, and his amazing cultivation rose to the extreme. Dark clouds quickly gathered in the sky, and thunder shook the sky, covering the cold moon in the sky. Seeing that the opponent's aura was getting stronger and stronger, Ning Chen's expression became serious. He turned his feet, gathered the power of yin and yang, and rushed out quickly. In an instant, his red robe was like an illusion, and his white fan turned into a sword. As he opened and closed it, sword light shot out. Oh, you don't want to defend anymore? Chao Tianqi turned his palm to block the sword, and a vast palm power swept out, sweeping toward the former. Ning Chen waved his fan to block the attack, and retreated 3 steps. Then he stepped forward again. With a glance, the sword moved thousands of times. In a close combat, the sword light was deadly, and each sword was faster than the previous one. Can your sword defend the central plains? Chao Tianqi snorted, and turned his palm to block the sword light. Then he gathered his yuan and qi, and hit again. With a boom, the white fan blocked the attack, and it turned red. In an instant, the blood light turned into a sword and broke through the sky. The sword at the peak was infinitely close to becoming one. With the support of the power of yin and yang, its power doubled. Chao Tianqi raised his hand, and the void rolled, and the sword light was drowned. Then he turned his slender hand, and his palm power was overwhelming. The 2 extremes collided again, and the dust and sand billowed. The 2 venerables in the formation could not bear the power of the counterattack, and they both vomited blood. Affected by the power of the 2 venerables, the blue and gold taiji diagrams in the sky became unstable and shook violently. Seniors, please hang in there. In the formation, Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth, glanced at the 2, and said lightly, The Lord of Taibai Mansion, and Bai Lingling nodded, and they suppressed their internal injuries with a shout, and stabilized the formation again. Chao Tianqi squinted his eyes slightly, and said, Marquis Jiming, it seems that the counterattack they suffered was much more than yours. Ha! Ning Chen chuckled and said, Star Venerable, I'm surprised that you can provoke us with your words. I'm just telling the truth, Chao Tianqi said calmly. The cultivation of the knowing destiny realm is far less than that of the 2 seniors. If we bear most of the power, I'm afraid we can't even bear one move of the Star Venerable. Once the formation is broken, we will be like fish on the chopping board, at the mercy of the Star Venerable, Ning Chen said with a smile. Chao Tianqi sneered and said, Really? I've heard that the Marquis Jiming of the Great Xia style has always been that a general's success is built on thousands of dead bodies. In order to achieve his goal, he will never hesitate to sacrifice anyone. These 2 people are also the pawns that you will sacrifice, right? Well, Star Venerable, it's beneath your dignity to slander others. Don't you know that I've always taken the lead and worked hard? If what you said is true, How can the people standing in front of you be in the knowing destiny realm? Ning Chen retorted. The Marquis Yiming's tongue is as sharp as a sword, Chao Tianqi said coldly. The knowing destiny realm deserves this compliment, Ning Chen replied. Ha, you two remember what you look like as military counselors. When you go to hell, there will be someone to take your life. As soon as he finished speaking, Chao Tianqi spread his palms in all directions, and torrents kept gathering. The shocking power shook the world, and the power beyond the limit of human beings reappeared in the world. Seniors, be careful. If you can't resist this move, we will really go to hell together. As he spoke, Ning Chen stepped forward, and the white fan in his hand shone brightly. Beams of sword light shot up into the sky. They were magnificent and endless. In the dark night, where the moon was covered by dark clouds, they were so dazzling that they could be seen clearly. Sword form heaven's tear. The heaven's tear appeared, and the yin and yang formation rotated. The sword light flowed with the power of yin and yang, and the power of yin and yang rose sharply. In the yin and yang formations, the lord of the Taibai mansion and Bai Lingling also focused their minds and strengthened the power of the formations with the power of the Buddha's true essence. The next moment, the blue and gold Tai Chi patterns shone brightly in the sky. Countless beams of sword light fell from the sky, cutting through the dark night with the power to destroy the world. The world shook. Clear snow in all heavens, follow the waves in sorrow. In the formation, Chao Tianqi used the power of the ultimate heaven, and cold air spread out endlessly. The shocking move went against the current. The battle at the pinnacle caused the heavens and earth to rumble. Beneath the four of them, the ground caved in, sinking several feet. Outside the formation, Zhao Liusu, Venerable Li Shan, and the others looked serious. They were watching the battle attentively, ready to take over at any time. They knew clearly that they couldn't lose this battle. Otherwise, the central state would never be able to turn the situation around. In the battle, after the two forces collided, the two figures retreated more than 10 steps. Blood kept flowing out of the corners of their mouths. They were seriously injured. Clang! The Taoist sword stabbed into the ground and stopped the retreat. The lord of the Taibai mansion shouted in a deep voice. His true essence surged to suppress his injuries. On the other side, Bai Lingling spat out a mouthful of blood. Her clear sky-colored glaze technique was unstable. She couldn't enter the supreme level. The balance of yin and yang was broken. In the sky, the Tai Chi formation shook violently and showed signs of collapse. In the center of the formation, Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth. He looked at the sky and sighed. Star Venerable, it seems that you have won. Is it too late to surrender now? I can only be at ease if you die. Chao Tianqi suppressed the surging blood qi in his body. His figure flashed, and his palm attack was deadly. Ning Chen stepped forward, and the water light flickered. He dodged in advance. Humph! Do you think you can escape? Chao Tianqi changed the direction of his palm and attacked again. In terms of speed, the knowing destiny state is not afraid of anyone. Ning Chen operated the little phoenix spirit in his body, and dodged again in an instant. With a loud bang, the palm attack passed by. Rows of palaces collapsed and turned into ashes. Chao Tianqi's eyes turned cold. He had almost forgotten that this person had phoenix spirit. Compared to swordsmanship, speed was his strength. Sword move, blood flame. Seeing that the Tai Chi formation in the sky was about to collapse, Ning Chen didn't hesitate anymore. He stepped into the sky and gathered the last of his yin and yang forces to perform the ultimate sword move again. The phoenix fire fell from the sky like waves. Wherever it passed, the sword will cut out gullies. Its amazing power shook the sky and the earth. Chao Tianqi squinted his eyes and turned his palm to resist the sword will again. The vigorous palm attack met the sword will head-on. With a loud explosion, the palm attack broke through the sword will and roared out. The yin and yang were out of balance, and the yin-yang formation couldn't resist the shocking palm attack. In the Taoist formation, Bai Lingling, who was exhausted, was the first to bear the brunt. She was in danger. Seeing this, Ning Chen dashed out. He grabbed Bai Lingling and moved hundreds of feet away quickly. With a loud bang, the palm attack broke the formation and destroyed the 100,000 divine restrictions in an instant. In the most critical situation, the yin-yang formation collapsed. Zhao Liusu and the others didn't dare to delay, and immediately rushed to the battlefield. Ba. At this moment, the sound of Sanskrit rang out. Golden lotuses bloomed in the sky, and rays of light gathered. A goddess of mercy walked out of thin air. She turned her delicate hands slightly, and a majestic Buddhist power pressed down from all directions, immediately stabilizing the collapse formation. West Jade Lord. Ning Chen's eyes flashed brightly. The person who was supposed to be here was finally here. Chapter 577. The West Jade Master appeared. The goddess of mercy's appearance was otherworldly and extraordinary. Her lotus fingers gently twirled, and golden light scattered outwards, locking down the scattered great formation. The Bodhi samurai was wearing a flawless white robe. His holy light illuminated the night. The West Jade Master, one of the 3 most mysterious Buddhists, had come to competitive Peak City in person. Master. Bai Lingling steadied herself, as a respectful look flashed across her exhausted face. You're badly injured. You can't fight anymore. Come out of the formation and heal yourself. The West Jade Master said softly. Then she turned her palm over. A gentle force wrapped around Bai Lingling and sent her out of the formation. West Jade Master, greetings. Ning Chen smiled and cupped his fists. You're too polite. Let's work together to fight the enemy first, the West Jade Master said calmly. Ning Chen nodded calmly. Buddhist power poured into the yin and yang formation, and the yin and yang forces were balanced again. A blue and gold taiji diagram appeared in the sky again. It kept spinning, and its power seemed to be stronger than before. Star Venerable, the previous battle doesn't count. From now on we'll officially start. Ning Chen waved his hand to disperse the blood on his fan. If I can defeat you once, I can do it again. Marquis Jiming, I'll definitely take your life today. Then Chao Tianxi raised his right hand. A boundless pressure spread out, and the space laws appeared again. Void destruction. He pointed his finger at the sky, and the space within 1,000 feet collapsed. The void spread out and swallowed everything in its way. His move was extraordinary. Ning Chen's paragon flame shone brightly. The phoenix fire refined the yin and yang, and a sea of fire rose to fight against the space laws. The phoenix true fire was an extraordinary flame. It kept rising in the formation, and it was indestructible. The 2 forces collided fiercely, and they intertwined with dazzling light. Suddenly, the whole competitive Peak City became as bright as day. Sword move, space breaking. After a moment of stalemate, Ning Chen turned his white fan. Phoenix essence flowed around his body. Flames rose, and the phoenix body move appeared again. His sword intent roared, and it turned into a 100-foot-long gust of wind. Chao Tianxi turned his palm to block it. His protective vital energy blocked the sword intent, and there were no flaws. Sword move, bloody path. The sword style changed, and the demonic technique appeared. In an instant, the red robe shot out, and the sword condensed into yin and yang. The concentrated sword thrust straight towards the heart meridian. Clang! His palm energy blocked the sword, and the void laws swirled, making it difficult for the sword light to advance. Drink! Xiao Chen shouted, and his red clothes spun around quickly. The scarlet flame on his white fan flourished. Yin and yang converged, inching closer to Xiao Chen. How dare you! Facing imminent danger, Chao Tianxi's eyes flashed with a white light. An unparalleled amount of qi surged out, and sent the person in front of him flying. Ta-ta! Hong Yi landed on the ground, and took several steps back. Blood flowed from his right arm, dyeing the white fan red once more. Military advisor, why don't you use your sword? Inside the Dao formation, the West Jade Master asked as she flipped her palm, and stabilized the formation, which was shaking violently due to the impact of the battle between the 2. It's broken, Ning Chen replied casually. When the West Jade Lord heard this, she waved her hand. Holy light shone, and a golden Buddhist weapon flew forward. On the other side, the chief of Taibai Prefecture also waved his hand to send out the Taoist sword in his hand to help the knowing destiny state. When the 2 swords arrived, Ning Chen calmed himself down and grasped them with both hands. The moment the swords entered his hands, His sword will broke through the limit and reached its peak. The Buddhist weapon and Tao sword shone with golden and green light. In the sky, the formation resonated with each other, and the power of yin and yang fell and entered the swords. Space breaking, the sword technique appeared again, and the two swords danced. The same technique, but with a completely different power, broke through the air. Chao Tianxi's eyes narrowed, and he circulated his palm energy. His genuine qi was vast, and he blocked the attack head-on. The two extremes collided and heaven and earth tilted. The heavenly mansion star venerate retreated half a step. This was the first time he had retreated since the start of the battle. Sword technique bloody path. Bloody light blossomed, and Hongyi arrived in an instant. One sword swept out, followed by another. Sword after sword, chasing after soul to take life. One sword stopped, while the other assisted. Chao Tianxi's genuine qi froze for a moment, and the Buddhist weapon penetrated an inch. Blood dyed his white dress red. Overflowing snow destroys the world. Chao Tianxi's palm condensed into a snow wave, and his palm imprinted on Chao Tianxi's chest. It was so powerful that even gods and ghosts would be frightened. At the moment of crisis, the formation changed rapidly. Ning Chen gathered yin and yang in front of him to protect his heart. There was a violent tremor, and blood splattered. Hongyi flew dozens of feet away, and she vomited blood when she landed. In the yin and yang formations, the West Jade Master and the Taibai Manor Lord both suffered from the backlash and were injured. The chief of Taibai Prefecture staggered a few steps and vomited blood from his mouth. Ning Chen steadied himself and looked back at the Taibai Manor Lord, who was in the Buddhist formation. Senior Taibai, can you still hold on? Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and asked. Don't worry about me, I can still hold on. The Lord of Taibai Prefecture shouted softly. The real qi around his body surged, and he kept suppressing the injuries that were surging violently. That's good. Ning Chen looked back at the Tianfu star venerate in front of him and said calmly, again. Outside the battle, Zhao Liusu and the others, who had been watching the battle for a long time, looked more and more serious. The Tianfu star venerate's strength was shocking. He had indeed surpassed the limits of the mortal world. The military counselor's strength was no weaker than a prime. Even with the yin and yang formation supported by two top-notch venerates, it was still difficult for him to gain the upper hand. However, at this moment, only the military counselor could fight with the Tianfu star venerate until now. Just as the venerates were watching the battle, the two sides started fighting again. The sword and the palm collided. After being injured, the Tianfu star venerate's killing intent was even stronger than before. As he moved, his power was even more shocking. Ning Chen refined yin and yang with his swords and faced the enemy head-on. His arms were stained with blood, but he did not retreat. His attacks were also fiercer. In the yin and yang formation, the two venerates suffered most of the aftermath. Their injuries were accumulating and getting heavier. In comparison, the knowing destiny state venerate, who was facing the enemy head-on, was protected by the formation and was the least injured. With a loud explosion, the two separated again. Ning Chen steadied himself and was about to charge forward when suddenly, the Buddha formation changed. The severely injured Taibai domain chief was hit by the aftermath. He staggered and could not support himself anymore. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight to the ground. The yin and yang were out of balance, and the formation shook. Ning Chen's expression changed. He no longer hesitated and stepped into the air. The two swords circled and absorbed all the power of the formation to form the last attack. Nirvana. In an instant, the sword intent soared into the sky and blood stained the swords. Although they came from the same source, their cultivation methods were different. The most powerful nirvana was beyond the range of the demonic body. If he used it forcefully, he would suffer the backlash. In the sky full of blood, the magnificent sword light crisscrossed. The most powerful sword finally appeared in the world. Below the formation, Chao Tianqi saw that the incoming attack was different from before. His expression was solemn. He used the power of wind and snow with his left hand and changed the space with his right hand. The two moves flowed together and met the incoming attack. With a loud explosion, heaven and earth were in chaos. The aftermath hit each other, and both sides were stained with blood. With a muffled groan, Chao Tianqi staggered. The sword intent entered his body, and affected the injury he suffered when he hit the Netherworld King's enchantment. In an instant it exploded. On the other side, the yin and yang formation was broken. The two venerates were stained with blood. The West Jade Master suppressed her injury and stepped out. The holy light around her illuminated the world. She used the Buddha technique for the first time. 3 realms of salvation, Bodhisattva repentance of demons. The Buddha technique of salvation was used. Guanyin moved to kill, and all demons trembled. Chao Tianqi's eyes changed. He turned his palm, and condensed his vitality to block the attack. But with an earth-shattering explosion, both of them stepped back and their mouths were stained with blood. Outside the battle, seeing that the formation was broken, Zhao Liusu and the others hurried forward. More than 10 supreme venerates joined the battle and surrounded Chao Tianqi. Star Venerable, what do you think? I've already said that you might not be able to defeat me. In the current situation, no one can gain an advantage if we continue to fight. It's up to you whether you want to destroy us together or take a step back. Ning Chen stepped forward and said calmly. Chao Tianqi's eyes were cold. What a Marquis Jiming! What a yin-yang formation! It wasn't an accident that the Netherworld King's path to destruction was blocked. Marquis Jiming, you've won this round. I hope you won't leave Jingfeng City for the rest of your life. Otherwise, I'll take your life. As he spoke, the void shook. Chao Tianqi's body gradually faded away. In an instant, he disappeared. Puff! As soon as Chao Tianqi left, Ning Chen staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood, which dyed the ground in front of him red. Zhao Liusu, who was the closest to Ning Chen, was shocked. She immediately went forward to support him and called out, "Military counselor, I'm fine. Let's go and see how Senior Tai Bai is doing." Ning Chen said weakly as he spat out another mouthful of blood. "I'll take care of it. Military counselor's injuries aren't light. I'll send someone to take him back first," Zhao Liusu said seriously. "Let me do it." At this moment Qing Ning appeared. She bowed to the West Jade Master and said, "Master, Ning Chen's injuries are serious. I'll take him to heal first." "Go ahead." The West Jade Master nodded and said. Qing Ning helped Ning Chen and didn't stay. Her figure flashed, and she flew toward Wenxian Palace. 15 minutes later, in Wenxian Palace, Ning Chen was lying on the bed with his eyes closed. Yin who had been woken up by the battle, looked at him with her big eyes. Her face was full of dissatisfaction. "Stop pretending." Sister Qing Ning said that your injuries aren't that serious. Yin said as she pulled Ning Chen's arm and pulled it down. Ning Chen got up helplessly and said, "Okay, even if they aren't serious, I'm still injured. Can't you let me rest for a while?" "Why are you pretending to be injured?" Yin climbed onto the bed and sat down next to him. She kicked her legs around as she asked, "To make the people outside feel better, think about it. Of the 4 people who entered the formation, Bilingling is seriously injured, and the Tai Bai Palace Lord is half dead. Even the West Jade Master must be seriously injured. Wouldn't it be inappropriate for me to act like I'm fine at this time?" Ning Chen said softly. Yin raised her head and thought about it. It seemed to be true. But the other 3 people are all so miserable. Why are you the only one who's fine? Yin's eyes flashed with confusion. "I'm just lucky." Ning Chen rubbed his nose and gave a vague answer. "You're so cunning." Yin wasn't an idiot. She could more or less guess what he was thinking. "Hey, you can't say that." Ning Chen patted her head and said, "Think about it. I was the one who set up the formation. I was also the one who fought. I even had to deal with the small talk inside the formation. I worked so hard, and I'm so important. It's not too much to let them suffer a bit more injuries, right? It's not too much." Yin cooperated and nodded vigorously. Chapter 578. In competitive Peak City, Ning Chen was bedridden and hadn't left Wenxian Palace for a few days. During this period, many human supremes came to visit. Even Zhao Liusu, who was the Alliance Venerable, came twice to ask about his condition. The news of the Alliance's military advisor being heavily injured quickly spread to Eternal Heaven City and the Heavenly Province Barracks. However, no matter if it was Xiao Libi or Chao Tianxi, both of them remained silent after hearing the news. They had already experienced Jiming Marquis' scheming. No one could guarantee that it was not a trap to lure the enemy. The painful lesson of Wanqing Pass was still fresh in their minds. Even the heavenly prefecture couldn't take it a second time. Minister of Heaven, with the cultivation of a star venerable. Even though Jiming Marquis managed to protect competitive Peak City, he must have paid a hefty price. It's very likely that he was seriously injured. This is an opportunity that we can't miss, Celestial Venerable Ling said to the blue-clothed man in front of her. Xiao Bieli didn't speak. After a long time he said calmly, "If I were Jiming Marquis, the more injured I was, the more I would pretend to be fine in front of others. Jiming Marquis wouldn't make such an obvious mistake as long as he's still alive." In Wenxian Palace, Qing Ning sent off the two visiting supremes again. She then pinched Yiner's little face, which was full of acting skills. This little girl was learning more and more from Ning Chen. "Yiner, play by yourself. I'll go back first," Qing Ning said softly. "Ah, so fast," Yiner said reluctantly. Qing Ning looked over and stared at Ning Chen, who was lying on the bed like a master. She said, "He's fine, but your sister Lingling's injuries aren't light. I have to go back and take care of her." "Oh." Yiner wrinkled her nose at someone and said, "It's all his fault. He's too bad." Qing Ning laughed softly and said, "All right, I'll go back. Be careful, don't give yourself away." "Okay." Yiner nodded and said, "Come visit me more often when you're free. Otherwise, they'll be suspicious," Ning Chen said from the bed. "Got it." Qing Ning replied in annoyance and walked out of the hall. "Ning Chen, I'm so bored." Yiner ran to the bed and said, "I'm even more bored," Ning Chen replied. "Let's sneak out to play," Yiner suggested. "No, I want to rest." Ning Chen turned around, his back facing the little girl as he replied, "Ning Chen, I'm ordering you to go out and play with me right now," Yiner said angrily as she forcefully pulled the former back. "Why should I listen to your orders?" Ning Chen asked in astonishment. "Did you forget that you still owe me 2 wishes? I need them now," Yiner said confidently. Ning Chen's eyelids twitched. He had forgotten about this. "Quick, let's sneak out. No one will know," Yiner urged. "You might be stupid, but those people from the Hall of Paragons aren't stupid. They'll definitely know once we leave," Ning Chen replied. "Then what should we do?" Yiner said dejectedly. "Do you really want to leave?" Ning Chen asked. "Yes." Yiner nodded vigorously and replied. Ning Chen thought for a moment and said a few words to the little girl. Soon after he smiled and said, "Go on. Don't forget to say hello to your big sister Qing Ning." "All right." Yiner smiled, turned around and ran out. After the little girl left, Ning Chen sat up and looked out of the window. A faint light flashed in his eyes. The news of his serious injuries must have spread. Wise people had the common problem of being cautious and suspicious. That celestial phenomenon sovereign was no exception. Coupled with the lesson from Wanqing Guan, he would definitely be more cautious this time. His injuries were indeed not serious, but the Taibai Prefecture Lord's injuries were not light. If the Taibai Prefecture Lord attacked again, Jingfeng City would really be in danger. No one could replace the Taibai Prefecture Lord's position. At least, he had not found such a person yet. In the current situation, it seemed that no one could do anything to the other, but in reality, the inner world was still in an absolute passive position. Although he could block the Taibai Prefecture Star Venerate in Jingfeng City, Chao Tianxi was still invincible outside of Jingfeng City. The only fortunate thing was that after a series of battles, Chao Tianxi's injuries had worsened. In the short term, unless it was necessary, he would not attack again. In this short period of time, he had to find a way to deal with Chao Tianxi. Otherwise, the chances of the Alliance of Sects winning this war were really slim. "Ning Chen, I'm back." Just then Yiner's voice came from outside the room. There was also the squeaking of the wheelchair. Ning Chen got up and walked to the front of the wheelchair. Such a familiar scene made him sigh inwardly. He could not remember how many times he had sat in this thing. "Let's go. As long as we don't leave the city, we can go anywhere," Ning Chen said softly. Now the Taibai Prefecture Star Venerate wanted to kill him the most. Leaving the city was no different from seeking death. Einar nodded and walked to the back of the wheelchair, pushing it outside. In the Central Plains battlefield, the two armies clashed. The defeat of the alliance of sects continued. Broken weapons and broken swords were everywhere. The cruelty of war had never changed. Just then, two young figures walked over from afar. One was black and the other snow white. The two young swordsmen had completely different auras, but they were both shockingly strong. When the swords met, there was no hostility. They looked at each other and nodded. This was the calmest greeting between former comrades. What a coincidence! What a coincidence! Looking for the Marquis? Yes. It's really surprising that you would care about these things. Aren't you here too? I don't care about the Central Plains, but Ji Ming seems to have been injured again. As a friend, I have to help him get back at him. As a friend, let me remind you to be careful. Be careful of what? Be careful of being killed by Ji Ming Marquis. Jian Er, you've become humorous. I'm just speaking the truth. It's not easy being friends with Ji Ming Marquis. Of course it's better than being a senior. At least we're still alive. There aren't many people in this world who would dare to call Ji Ming Marquis a senior. Mu Qianshang, speaking ill of others behind their backs, isn't the behavior of a gentleman. The army blocked their path, but the two didn't stop. Their swords didn't move, but their sword lights were like rain. The people around them were sent flying and couldn't get close. Behind the Taibai Prefecture army, Xiao Bieli saw the two from afar. His expression froze. What a strong sword will. Celestial Venerable Ling, stop these two, Xiao Bieli said. Yes. Celestial Venerable Ling received the order, and her figure flashed as she swept forward. Oh, someone's coming. In the Taibai Prefecture army, Mu Qianshang turned around with a strange look in his eyes. Fight or run? Jian Er asked calmly. Run. Mu Qianshang didn't even think about it. One sword, 10,000 calamities. Jian Er heard him and waved his hand. Amidst the ancient brilliance, the broken sword was unsheathed. With a slash, a flat path opened up 3,000 feet in front of them. The two took a step and sped away. Sword Chi. At this moment, 100 miles away, a young man in a purple and red robe stopped. He looked forward with a strange look in his eyes. In the next moment, a stream of light flashed and moved forward. 100 miles away, two swords were flying north. Behind them, Celestial Venerable Ling's figure was chasing after them. The three figures, two in front and one behind, were getting closer and closer. The speed of a peak supreme being was still slightly faster. Let's fight. Seeing the people behind them getting closer and closer, Mu Qianshang changed his mind and spoke again. Jian Er didn't express his opinion. He stopped and turned around ready to attack. It's not easy, be careful, Mu Qianshang reminded. As long as it's easier than King Ming, Jian Er said calmly. Mu Qianshang laughed softly and said, if it happens again, I'll surrender on the spot. Thinking about the situation back then, I'm still scared. Useless, Jian Er said indifferently. Mu Qianshang was about to retort when his expression suddenly froze. Here it comes. The battle strategy is simple. If you can win, then fight. If you can't, then run. Jian Er nodded and took half a step forward. His sword will rose continuously, an endless sword pressure spread in all directions. An instant later, the illusion shook and purple light gathered. An incomparably strong aura appeared. Without any nonsense, a vast palm smacked towards the two of them. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er's figures flashed and avoided the palm force. Then one attacked and one defended, quickly meeting the attack. Mountain and water painting opened, and the sword realm sealed the supreme being. At the same time, Jian Er swung his sword. Within 3,000 feet, absolute speed, absolute sword intent, and no distance, arrived in an instant. With a clang, the palm and sword clashed. The sword cultivator took 3 steps back, and the moment he turned his body, a black and white sword chi flashed past him. Celestial Venerable Ling's expression froze. Her raised hand landed and dispersed the sword chi. In an instant, the broken sword shuddered again. It was fast and accurate. There was no gap in their tacit cooperation. The two swords crossed, attacking and defending alternately. One sword advanced while the other retreated. The same sword was at the pinnacle, But a different sword was at the highest level. It reappeared, the glory of the Battle of Blasphemy. Celestial Venerable Ling flipped her palm to block the two swords. Her heart trembled even more. This was the first time she realized that swords could change like this. When the battle reached its climax, the sound of a sword rang outside the sword realm. In the next instant, a blue sword light flashed past, and a mournful sword hum invaded people's hearts. Purple and red clothes, a young face, instantly entered the battle. He grasped his sword and moved it, sealing the supreme being. The sword at the pinnacle shone in an instant. There was no need for words, and the sword moved mountains and rivers. The three swords worked together to fight Ling Tian. Endless sword will filled the sky with sword light. Friend, your name. Mu Qianshang swung his sword to guide the ink painting to block Ling Tian's palm. Yishuan Miao. Fourth Crown Prince Mizar said calmly as the green moth danced. After this battle, I'll treat you to a drink. As he spoke, Mu Qianshang gathered the power of the mountains and rivers from all directions. Red light appeared in the sword realm. In the black and white world, the blood light rushed into the sky. That was it. Half a day's remnant red reflects the river moon. The extreme move appeared, and the mountains and earth cracked. The sword realm changed, causing the heaven and earth outside to change drastically. Violent waves of sand swept 300 yards. Sword form, formless sword. Sword 2 stepped into the air at the same time, and coordinated with his sword. The formless sword gathered again and again, and in an instant it broke through the air. Cry of the green moth. Two swords appeared at the pinnacle. Yishuan Miao's eyes flashed with a dazzling brilliance. With a wave of his hand, the green moth danced in the opposite direction and flew forward. In the golden era, the three pinnacle prodigies of the sword gathered. Sword martial spring and autumn shocked the world. The three swords approached her. Ever since she left the immortal execution forbidden ground, Celestial Venerable Ling felt a life-threatening pressure. Her expression froze, and all her energy gathered in her palms to block the three sword lights. Boom! With a violent tremor, heaven and earth sank, and the four of them each took a few steps back. Suddenly, an arrow light broke through the battle without any warning. In an instant it pierced through her body. Chapter 579. In the Mountain River Sword Realm, the three prides fought Ling Tian, and their ultimate moves clashed. Sword sparks and blood splattered everywhere. The arrow that appeared in the aftermath was so sudden that it pierced through Celestial Venerable Ling's heart from the back. Blood sprayed into the sky and dyed the ink-colored mountains and rivers red. Stumble, stumble. Celestial Venerable Ling covered her bleeding chest and turned her head in disbelief to look at the figure in the distance. When was this? The arrow heavily injured her and destroyed her heart meridians. Celestial Venerable Ling spat out another mouthful of blood and quickly retreated. Tisk! Ink flowed in the Mountain River Sword Realm. Every wisp of ink was a sword intent. The Sword Realm had no way out and sealed off the path of retreat for the Supreme Being. One sword, 10,000 calamities. Sword 2 swung his sword and howled furiously. Sword light broke through the air and restarted the battle. At the same time, Yishuan Miao wielded his sword and stepped forward. His green moth sword hummed as it transformed into a waterfall to seal off Ling Tian's moves. The sword and palm clashed, and the aftermath surged. The power of the broken sword could break mountains, and was incomparably sharp. The green moth sword moved strangely, its soft body twisting and twisting as it chased after souls. On the side, Mu Qianshang's sword condensed the mountains and rivers, and the ink-white swirled around as it gathered power for the next sword. Outside the ink painting, Falling Star drew his red bow again. The green arrow light gathered and didn't fire, waiting for the right time. In the battle, Celestial Venerable Ling became more and more shocked as she fought. Her heart meridians were heavily injured, and her blood and qi couldn't continue. Her body was severely restricted, and she gradually fell into a disadvantage with her two swords that were both hard and soft. The sword light flashed and blood splattered. The unstoppable changes on the sword were the bell of the Yellow Springs opening the way. The top sword prodigies of the East and Middle States worked together for the first time, and they showed astonishing chemistry. The exquisite sword intent was indescribable. End Forbidden Sword Illusion Bubbles. After gathering power for a long time, Mu Qiansheng stepped into the air and transformed the sword intent around him into a move. In an instant, the end sword was unleashed, and in the sword realm, ink-colored bubbles rose. The bubbles collapsed, and outside the sword realm, heaven and earth also dissipated. Celestial Venerable Ling, who was heavily injured, couldn't hold on any longer. She was enveloped by the ink-colored bubbles, and in an instant the bubbles collapsed. At this moment, outside of the battlefield, the star scar shattered the sky. The green arrow light arrived in a flash. The yellow springs opened the way, and the Grim Reaper took the life. The arrow that had been prepared for a long time penetrated the Venerable One's body and instantly destroyed his vitality. With a loud bang, Ling Tian collapsed to the ground. Be it unwillingness or confusion, all of that flowed into the ground with his blood, no longer important. The mountain and water sword realm dispersed, and Mu Qiansheng went forward. He stretched out his hand to close Celestial Venerable Ling's eyes, sending the martial arts practitioner on her way in peace. When Jian Er and Yishuan Miao saw this, they did not say anything. Although they had different standpoints, the dignity of a cultivator could not be blasphemed. After finishing what he had to do, Mu Qiansheng stood up and looked at Yishuan Miao, who was beside Sword 2. He politely asked, "Friend, where are you going?" "Competitive Edge City," Yishuan Miao said calmly. "Oh, what a coincidence, we're also going there." With that said, Mu Qiansheng glanced at Luo Xingchen, who was walking over, and said, "That despicable person who specializes in backstabbing people. I reckon he is also heading to Competitive Edge City." "Mu Qiansheng, you ungrateful bastard. Do you believe that I won't turn you into a sieve right now? If I hadn't made a move just now, you would have already been slapped to death," Luo Xingchen angrily said. "I don't know if he can slap me to death, but I do know that there is a saying that a gentleman cannot be shot in the back," Mu Qiansheng disdainfully said. "Bullshit. Don't think that I don't know that this saying was said by Ji Ming. In this world he is the one who stabs people in the back the most. Whoever believes his words is an idiot," Luo Xingchen replied. "If the two of you don't leave now, it will be dark soon. It won't be too late to quarrel on the way," Jian Er said. "Let's go." Mu Qiansheng put away his sword and quickly walked forward. Luo Xingchen also followed, no longer quarreling. "I didn't expect that we would coincidentally run into each other today, when we usually don't have any news of you," Mu Qiansheng sighed. "Coincidental? It's not coincidental at all. I've already been waiting here for several days," Luo Xingchen replied. "Oh, since you're here first, why don't you go to Competitive Edge City to look for Ji Ming?" Mu Qiansheng asked in surprise. "It's a long story." Luo Xingchen's face was filled with displeasure. "You also know how vicious that Ji Ming's mouth is. Last time, I borrowed 600 Origin Immortal Jades from him. If I don't bring some gifts now, do you think that brat will let it go?" "Heh." Mu Qiansheng gently smiled. "Speaking of which, we did help you. A peak human sovereign like this is enough to make up for those immortal jades. It's too late to regret making friends," Luo Xingchen sighed. On the side, Yishuan Miao was silent for a moment when he heard their conversation. Then he asked, "You are friends of Ji Ming, Marquis?" Mu Qiansheng smiled. "We are friends who have gone through life and death together. However, it has always been us going to die while he takes advantage of us." "Ji Ming, Marquis." Yishuan Miao paused for a moment before slowly saying, "He is a person who values friendship and loyalty." "Oh, you also know him?" Mu Qiansheng asked in surprise. Yishuan Miao nodded. "He killed my brother and saved my life. A complicated relationship." Mu Qiansheng's eyes flashed with a strange light. "Seeing how you helped me today, I'll give you a piece of advice. Ji Ming, Marquis is not someone to be trifled with. Those who have enmity with him are pretty much all dead. He is cold-blooded and emotionless more than he values friendship and loyalty. Thank you for the reminder. I will seriously consider it." Yishuan Miao softly replied. The four of them quickly headed north. When the sun was about to set, the four of them finally arrived at Competitive Peak City. Yishuan Miao took out the golden medallion unique to the four crown princes of the Mizar dynasty and stated his purpose for coming. Very quickly, someone came to receive them, and led them to Wenxian Palace. Coincidentally, when the four of them arrived at Wenxian Palace, Yin'er and Ningchen had just returned from outside. "Oh, isn't this the famous Yiming Marquis? How did you get beaten up so badly?" Mu Qianshang walked up with a smile. On the wheelchair, Ningchen was silent. After a moment he slowly spat out, "Scram." The five of them entered the palace, and Yixuan Miao left. He first went to the Hall of Venerables to meet the Alliance sovereign. Of the 5 people in the palace, other than the little girl, the remaining 4 were all comrades from the Battle of Sendu. Ningchen did not hide anything, and directly stood up from the wheelchair, causing the 3 of them to be stunned. Despicable. Shameless. Mu Qianshang and Luo Xingchen recovered and immediately mocked. Jianair sighed. "We should have thought of this earlier. The 3 of you, there is tea on the table. Please help yourselves." Ningchen smiled. "Facing a superior supreme, you're actually completely fine. Your luck is really great," Luo Xingchen said unhappily. Luo Xingchen cut the crap. "When are you going to return my 600 immortal sources? Don't tell me you're not planning on not returning them?" Ningchen indifferently said. Luo Xingchen looked at the 2 people beside him and said, "How is it? My guess was right? Fortunately, I was a little more careful this time. Otherwise, someone would definitely accuse me of not paying back my debts." Mu Qianshang smiled. "Ji Ming, he already returned the 600 immortal sources he owed you." "Oh, why do you say that?" Ningchen walked to the table and poured himself a cup of tea, asking softly. "Celestial Venerable Ling is dead," Mu Qianshang said seriously. In the Heavenly Manor camp, other than that sword venerable whose meridians were crippled, only Celestial Venerable Ling had such ability. When Ningchen heard that, the teacup in his hand shattered with a bang. He said in disbelief, "Are you sure?" "Yes." Mu Qianshang nodded. "Tell me the details of the situation." Ningchen calmed down the ripples in his heart and said. Mu Qianshang seriously recounted the previous battle, not missing any details. "It's indeed him." Ningchen sighed softly, saying, "My 3 good friends, you guys have really solved a huge problem for me." "It's nothing." Luo Xingchen's arrow came at the right time. "However, compared to the Celestial Venerable Ling, I'm more curious about how strong the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable is." Jianair went forward and asked. "Unparalleled," Ningchen said slowly. "Not to mention other things, just based on combat power, the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable is almost equivalent to half of the King of Hell. The only difference is that Chao Tianqi doesn't have a terrifying physique like the 7 ultimate divine body, so his defense is much weaker." Speaking of this, Ningchen looked at Mu Qianshang and narrowed his eyes slightly. He revealed the kindest smile on his face and said, "Brother Mu, I seem to have heard you mention before that the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion's predecessor was the inheritance of the Dao sect, right?" When Mu Qianshang heard that, his eyelids twitched. He shook his head and said, "You must have remembered wrongly. I didn't say such a thing." Although the cultivation aptitude of the knowing destiny state isn't that great, my memory is still quite good. I can't possibly remember what my good friend said wrong." Ningchen laughed softly. "So what if I said that? Let's say this first. I can help you, but don't think that I will help you deal with the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable. I don't want to die so quickly." Mu Qianshang's expression was full of caution. "Of course." Ningchen laughed softly. "How can I let my friends be in danger?" At the side, Luo Xingchen and Jianair heard that, and almost spat out the tea in their mouths. How could a person's skin be so thick? "The 2 of you, how is the taste of the tea?" Ningchen looked at the 2 of them and smiled. "The tea isn't bad, but it smells of a conspiracy," replied Luo Xingchen. Ningchen laughed softly. Brother Xingchen's taste is truly becoming more and more unique. Even a cup of tea can smell a conspiracy. "You're too polite. I've been drinking tea for half my life, and only with you can I taste such an unforgettable taste." Luo Xingchen put down his teacup. Jianair, who had been quiet all this time, also put down his teacup and calmly said, "Knowing Destiny Marquis, let's talk about serious matters. We've come to help you. Do you have a way to deal with the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable?" Ningchen fell silent. After a long time he sighed. With my current strength, I can only contend with him in competitive Peak City. Outside of competitive Peak City, there is no one in the 5 regions who can stop the Heavenly Manor Star Venerable. What about your main body? Can you recover the power of the 4 scrolls? Asked Mu Qianshang. My main body is still in Chongling. However, the Chongling female supreme has already sealed Chongling. No one can enter now. Even if they can, it is useless. Back then, my main body was able to resist the Nether King because the teacher had acted. He had turned my main body's 500 years of lifespan into 100 years of foundation and forcibly completed the life scroll. Together with the 1,000 years of providence of the Great Xia, I had the power to resist the Nether King. But now it is impossible, Ningchen said honestly. Chapter 580. Outside the Wenxian Palace, the 4 of them talked for a long time. They were comrades who had gone through thick and thin together. Now they finally met again to share Jiming's worries. In that case, if you don't find a way to deal with the Heavenly Mansion Star Venerate, your life will be in danger as soon as you leave competitive Edge City, Luo Xingchen said with a frown. I think that should be the case. Ningchen chuckled. Now, there are countless eyes of the Heavens Mansion in competitive Peak City. Once I leave the city, the Star Venerable of the Heavens Mansion will appear soon. It's such a good bait, but I don't have the strength to draw the net. What a pity. The most important thing is still absolute martial strength, Sword 2 sighed softly. Thus, I need Brother Mu's help. Ningchen looked at Mu Qianshang and said, the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion has inherited the Dao Sect's legacy, but there are records of formations. Although I barely managed to restore the Yin-Yang Great Array, I am far from being able to activate it at will like Senior Dao Kuei. The Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion has only inherited a portion of the Taoist sect's teachings. There are very few records regarding formations. Furthermore, they are all sealed in the highest level of the pagoda. They are protected by the seals of the Taoist sect's ancestors. How many there are, what they are, and even if there are any, I cannot guarantee, said Mu Qianshang. Brother Mu, can you take me back? Asked Ningchen. Can you leave competitive Edge City? Mu Qianshang asked in confusion. Huh? Ningchen smiled. He looked at Luo Xingchen and said, Brother Xingchen, there is a small matter that I might need your help with. Speak. Luo Xingchen said unhappily. He knew that Luo Xingchen would not stay idle after coming here. While I'm on my way to the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion, you'll stay here in my place and continue pretending to be injured. The Rui art of changing one's appearance isn't difficult to learn. It's just a small matter for you, Brother Xingchen. Also, I'll ask Sister Qing Ming to cooperate with you. There shouldn't be a problem for a few days, Ningchen said softly. Come back quickly. I won't be able to last long on such a boring mission, Starfall said. Of course. Ningchen nodded. When are we leaving? Mu Qianshang asked. Tomorrow. It'll be more convenient to leave the city during the day. We won't attract the attention of the Heavenly Sanctum's spies, Ningchen replied. Heart's Desire technique, Starfall said as he stretched out his hand. Ningchen flipped his right hand, and a sheepskin book appeared before he passed it over to the former. Oh, you were prepared, Luo Xingchen said indifferently. There's no harm in being prepared. Who knows when it might come in handy? Ningchen chuckled. You guys continue chatting. I'm going to help someone out. I made friends carelessly, and it's too late for regrets. Luo Xingchen stood up and sighed. Knowing destiny will always remember Brother Xingchen's kindness, Ningchen said with a smile. Luo Xingchen waved his hand, and did not say anything else. He walked towards the guest room not far away. Ji Ming, it's been a long time since we last exchanged pointers, said Sword 2 calmly after Luo Xingchen left. Mu Qianshang's expression turned serious when he heard this. Their swords were about to reach their limits. Only by obtaining the one and only sword would they be able to advance to the next level. Ningchen looked at the tea leaves floating in his cup, and forcefully suppressed the demonic cultivator's instinctive fighting spirit. After a long time, he faintly smiled and softly said, Blades and swords have no eyes. Let's talk about this later. Jin Er was silent. Jiming Marquis was good at fighting, but he was not fond of fighting. However, Jianair really wanted to fight with him. He was Mu Bai's disciple, and Marquis Jiming was the descendant of Prince Yan. Back then, his master couldn't fight the legend of the Xia dynasty, and regretted it for the rest of his life. He wanted to fulfill his master's last wish. "How long will you wait?" asked Jianair a moment later. Ning Chen's hand paused. He could no longer suppress his instinctive fighting spirit. He slowly said, "When Heaven's Mansion retreats, Jiming will accompany you." "All right, I'll wait," said Jianair. The two of them didn't say anything else. They nodded and went back to rest. Mu Qianshang helplessly shook his head. It seemed there was nothing for him to do. If there was really no other way, finding Luo Xingchen to fight wasn't a bad idea. The moon set and the sun rose. Ningchen carefully arranged everything for the future. Soon after, he changed his appearance and left the city with Mu Qianshang. In front of Wenxian Palace, a red-robed man in a wheelchair was leisurely basking in the sun, attracting the attention of Heaven's Mansion's spies. Outside the city, Ning Chen and Mu Qianshang were heading east, rushing towards the Divine Continent. Half a day later, the two of them stopped in front of the ocean between the two regions. "Why did you stop?" asked Mu Qianshang. "It's nothing. I was just thinking about the past. Let's continue on our way." Ning Chen's feet moved and he rushed forward. Mu Qianshang followed. Not long after, the two of them disappeared into the boundless ocean. The cold moon hung high in the night sky. Halfway through the night, the two of them finally set foot on the Divine Continent. They didn't stop and directly rushed towards the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion, northwest of the Grand Xia Azure Frost Valley. It was a place where snow fell all year round. Two figures rushed in and then stopped. Mu Qianshang waved his hand, and the void shook. An illusory mirror image appeared, and the path ahead reappeared. The two of them walked one after the other. The mirror image dissipated, and everything returned to normal. The Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion was an ancient secret realm. Unlike the Azure Frost Valley outside, the secret realm was peaceful and full of life, as expected of a great sect that inherited the Taoist sect's inheritance. "It's really extraordinary," praised Ningchen. "If you're envious, you can enter Sword Pavilion. I'll recommend you," said Mu Qianshang casually. "Ha! Brother Mu isn't worried that Jiming's fate will drag down the entire Sword Pavilion," laughed Ningchen. "That's true. Just pretend I didn't say anything," said Mu Qianshang. The two of them talked as they walked. Not long after, ancient palaces appeared in front of them. Behind the palaces, there was a towering scripture pagoda that was dozens of feet tall. "Young master." At this moment, a white-robed disciple with an extraordinary temperament appeared and bowed. Mu Qianshang nodded slightly and said, "Bring us to see the pavilion master." "Yes." The white-robed disciple respectfully stood up and led the way. Half-step Xiantian. It seems that after the 5 regions merged, the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion has produced many new experts, said Ning Chen as he glanced at the young disciple leading the way. "It's not just Sword Pavilion. It's the same for the entire Divine Continent. But compared to the other 4 regions, it's still far inferior. So no matter what, we can't let the flames of war spread to the Divine Continent," said Mu Qianshang. "I understand." Ningchen nodded. The Divine Continent needed time to recuperate before it could catch up to the other 4 regions. The current eastern region could no longer withstand the flames of war. As they spoke, the two of them arrived in front of the Heavenly Sword Pavilion. The disciple leading the way bowed again and left. The two of them entered the pavilion. A middle-aged man stood there quietly with an eager expression. When he saw the two of them, his eyes flashed with excitement. "Master." Mu Qianshang knelt down and bowed respectfully. "Get up." The Heavenly Sword Pavilion master's eyes flashed with tears as he helped his only disciple up. "It's good that you're back." Junior Ning Chen greets the pavilion master. Ning Chen gave a junior's greeting. "Ning Chen." The Heavenly Sword Pavilion master was startled. A moment later his expression changed and he said in shock, "Jiming Marquis." It had been more than 10 years. If he hadn't heard this name again, he wouldn't have recognized him. "It's all in the past. Junior is just a commoner now," said Ning Chen with a smile. Just as the two of them were returning to the eastern region, A streak of light streaked across the central region under the moonlight, heading east at extreme speed. Within Eternal Heavenly City, Chao Tian, she who was in seclusion, suddenly felt an intense sense of danger approaching. His eyes opened and he rushed out of his stone room. In the west, 3 dragon corpses were rapidly approaching. Behind them, an immortal palanquin was moving at a terrifying speed. It was so fast that mortals would be unable to see it. The immortal palanquin entered Eternal Heavenly City without changing direction. It was just about to collide with the city's transportation formation. Chao Tianxi's expression changed when he saw this. He took a step forward and condensed vast origin energy in his palm to block the immortal corpses. With a bang, rocks were sent flying. The 3 dragon corpses were blocked, and their forward momentum slowed. Boom! At this instant, an extremely shocking pressure swept out from within the palanquin. In the next moment, a beautiful figure walked out. She wore a red wedding dress and a red veil. Her appearance couldn't be seen clearly, but she still gave off an indescribable feeling of charm. Chao Tianxi's expression darkened as he sensed the terrifying aura of the woman before him. He no longer cared about his injuries. With a light shout, he unleashed all of his powers. In an instant, a raging storm swept through the 9 heavens, causing the winds and clouds to change color. At the same time, the ghost woman moved. Her slender right hand condensed 8 desolation ghost chi. The 2 experts clashed, causing a huge explosion. The ground between them split apart, and a several 100-mile gorge appeared. It directly split Eternal Heavenly City in 2, east and west. 2 immortal treading experts clashed. The terrifying destructive power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. In just one move, an entire city was destroyed. Everything within hundreds of miles was affected. Ghost Desolation Art Soul Severing. With the Ghost Desolation Divine Art, the Ghost Lady's ghostly energy surged. Her godly energy could shatter souls and destroy mountains and earth. Chao Tian, she used his spatial energy to meet the Ghost Desolation Art. With a bang, he was forced back several steps, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. Snow shatters the world. Chao Tian, she didn't want to drag this battle out. With a flip of his palm, wind and snow began to fall. An extremely cold aura rapidly spread. Yendi! In the frozen world, the ghost woman's expression turned cold. She raised her slender hand. In an instant, her whole body was covered in bloody light. The void shook, and a purple gold divine sword slowly fell. The moment it touched her hand, boundless sword pressure spread out. The sword pressure hit him, causing new and old injuries. Chao Tian, she staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. The world of ice and snow was dyed red. In an instant, the purple sword light flashed, and the world of ice and snow collapsed. Chao Tian, she couldn't recover his chi because of his injuries. The moment he blocked the attack, he was sent flying. The ghost woman didn't attack again. She waved her hand and put away Yendi. Then she turned around and walked into the palanquin. The 3 dragon corpses took off, pulling the palanquin and continuing east. Boom! In the rumbling, the dragon corpses ran over the formation in the city. The formation in all directions quickly fell apart. 1,000 feet away, the seriously injured Chao Tian, she struggled to get up. Before he could straighten his body, he spat out another mouthful of blood. Come! After a long time, Chao Tian, she managed to stabilize his injuries. He glanced at the formation that was mostly destroyed and said slowly, "Star Venerable." A black-robed figure appeared and said respectfully, "Tell Tian Xiang that the transportation formation has been destroyed. Tell him to return quickly." Chao Tian, she said tiredly. "Yes." The black-robed figure took the order and disappeared in a flash. Chapter 581. In the Compassionate Sword Heavenly Pavilion, Ning Chun explained his intentions. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master was silent for a long time before finally agreeing to his request. In front of the Scripture Tower, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master looked at the 2 of them and solemnly said, "Knowledge Marquis, Qianshang, you have to be careful. In the past 1,000 years, no one has ever entered the final floor of the Scripture Tower. No one knows what's inside, so you can't be careless." "Master, don't worry. We'll be careful. Mu Qianshang nodded. The two of them didn't delay any longer and directly entered the tower. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master looked at the two of them and sighed. Those youths who had needed the protection of their elders had grown to such a level in the blink of an eye. They had long since surpassed them. Inside the pagoda, the two of them walked up level by level. Only when they reached the entrance of the last level did they stop. Ningchen stepped forward and touched the stone door. The moment his sword intent appeared, it was immediately repelled by a force. What an extraordinary formation, Ningchen softly said. In the past 1,000 years, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion has tried many times, but we have never been able to break this formation. According to my guess, this formation's endurance is at least equal to a full-powered attack from a human sovereign. If it can't be broken, it will repair itself. Mu Qianshang replied. Let's work together, Ningchen calmly said. Yes, Mu Qianshang nodded. The two of them stood side by side. True yuan surged around their bodies and rays of sword light appeared. Their auras were linked together as they worked together to break the formation. The snow sword was unsheathed. Ningchen condensed his yuan and poured it into the former sword. In an instant, the snow sword's light shone through the scripture tower, illuminating the surrounding 50 miles. Within the secret realm, the Heavenly Sword Pavilion's disciples and elders all looked at the scripture tower with shock. Was this their young master's sword? It far surpassed their own. With a loud rumble, the world shook. The formation within the scripture tower violently shook before collapsing and dissipating. At this moment, the dissipating formation suddenly changed. Two rays of sword qi appeared without any warning. One black and one white, one yin and one yang. They shot towards Mu Qianshang at the front. Ning Chen's expression changed, and he instantly stepped forward. A white fan appeared and blocked the two swords. Many thanks. Mu Qianshang's eyes focused. There's no need. Be careful. Your master was right. This place isn't simple, warned Ning Chen. The two of them entered the last floor. It was empty before their eyes. There were no ancient books or rare treasures. It was as if it was an empty floor of the pagoda. No one could see anything unusual about it. Strange. Mu Qianshang frowned. The last level of the scripture pagoda was actually empty. Since that was the case, why was there such a powerful array protecting it? Demon. Suddenly, a green light flashed in the tower and the scene changed. In an unfamiliar space, a green figure appeared. His aura was complicated and terrifying. Without saying a word, a terrifying pressure directly attacked the two of them. Pooh! Mu Qianshang and Ning Chen both staggered as they vomited. Mu Qianshang, who was also a Taoist, felt a piercing pain in his consciousness and fainted. Seeing this, Ning Chen stepped forward and supported Mu Qianshang. Looking at the figures in the sky, he coldly asked, "Who are you?" "I am not a person. I am the very high heavens." In the sky, a figure dispersed and turned into 49 men and women. Soon after, they once again merged into one. They continuously changed, and their voices were mixed together. It was hard to tell if they were male or female. Ning Chen's expression sank. What was going on? These people's auras were so similar to Senior Dao Leader. "You are the Dao Leader?" Suddenly, Ning Chen seemed to have thought of something. His eyes narrowed as he slowly asked. "Yes and no. I am the very high heavens." As they spoke, the 49 figures merged into one. An ancient sword appeared in their hands, and they directly slashed out. The sword that didn't change was so terrifying that it made people's hearts palpitate. Even someone as strong as Ning Chen could no longer hide his aura. The devil qi in his body suddenly erupted. Scarlet sword met the very high heavens sword. With a bang, blood splattered. Ning Chen retreated several steps and was instantly heavily injured. The dense devil qi that even venerable Subhoodie couldn't break through showed signs of collapse in just one move. Demons should not exist in this world. The mixed and indistinguishable voice sounded again. The very high heavens moved, and with a flip of his palm, Mu Qianshang's body merged into it. Seeing this, Ning Chen's eyes turned cold. His figure flashed, and he instantly rushed forward. With a slash of his sword, devil qi filled the sky. The very high heavens blocked Scarlet Sword with his sword. His body completely merged with Mu Qianshang. He opened his eyes and sent the former flying. Ning Chun landed on the ground. He didn't care about his right arm that was covered in blood. His eyes stared at the 49 Dao sect monster in front of him, and said with a cold tone, "Very high heavens, if you dare to touch him, I will make sure that you will never reincarnate." In front of the very high heavens, lies are useless. The very high heavens sword aura changed, and the Taisher ancient sword shone brightly. With a swing of the sword, the illusory world started to distort violently. The sword light attacked. Ning Chun condensed his energy and slashed across Scarlet Sword. At that moment, the baleful aura completely filled the sky. The rolling devil chi converged, and the shocking devil chi caused the sky to wail. The two swords clashed and everything was instantly destroyed. Ning Chun retreated 3 steps. A black phoenix appeared behind him. It was a devil chi. Devil technique blood flames. Scarlet Sword swung, and the phoenix fire and devil chi surged into the sky. The sword current coiled and broke through the sky. Gentleman's wind. The very high heavens swung his sword, and the Taisher ancient sword howled. As the sword wind passed, the blood flames in the sky collapsed. Man follows earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao, Tao follows nature. After a move, the very high heavens used a Tao sect's secret technique. The surrounding heaven and earth energy gathered, and a sword light surged into the sky. The terrifying pressure instantly destroyed the illusory world within 100 miles. Seeing the shock of the incoming move, Ning Chun flipped his left palm and pressed it against his Dantian Sea of Qi. At that moment, the seal of yellow springs left behind by the phoenix body collapsed by 30%. The Xian Luo demonic qi sealed within exploded and gushed out. Devil technique Heaven's Tears. Enduring the pain all over his body, Ning Chun used Heaven's Tears again. At that moment, resentment filled the sky, and the God imprisonment space spread out, suppressing the Tao sect's very high heaven's power. Oh! The surprised voices of the 49 Tao sect's men and women could be heard. The force of nature on the sword was suppressed, and the Tao sect's demonic qi restrained each other. The Taisher ancient sword's radiance fell, and his move weakened. Ning Chun took a step forward, and the crimson drill went up to meet his move. With the demon phoenix's help, black feathers fluttered. With a loud bang, the crimson drill fell to the ground and dust filled the sky. On the other side, the very high heavens took half a step back and used their sword intent. Dao Chang Wuming. The demonic qi was extraordinary. The very high heavens had the ability to change the world. The sword was clear, and the nameless no-beginning sword appeared. Suddenly, the very high heavens body trembled and figures were shaken out. It was Mu Qianshang's unconscious consciousness that was resisting violently and rejecting the people who entered his body. The nameless no-beginning sword dissipated, and the very high heavens' eyes focused. Rays of light flashed, and the 10 Tao sect's leaders that left his body returned to him and suppressed the consciousness that was resisting. Junior, resisting your ancestor is foolish. Voices of men and women spoke in unison. Demonic technique blood path. At this moment, the demon phoenix spread its wings and a ray of blood light swept past. It was fast, it was still fast. The crimson drill sword appeared and blood waves moved the world. Demonic qi, a race that does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. The very high heavens suppressed the consciousness's resistance and slashed out with the Taisher sword, forcing the demonic qi to retreat. The two swords clashed, and the Taisher ancient sword's power was unstoppable as it pierced through the demonic qi's chest. A groan was heard and blood flowed out from the corner of Ning Chun's mouth. The Taisher ancient sword entered his body, and the Tao energy on the sword spread, instantly injuring the demonic qi's body. However, at this moment, the demonic qi's eyes did not show any signs of panic. Ignoring the injuries in his body, his right hand grabbed onto the Taisher ancient sword's hand, and demonic qi gushed out from his body. "I've caught you." With a cold shout, the demonic qi in the god confinement space went berserk. The demonic qi rushed into the very high heavens body. With a rumble, heaven and earth trembled. Demonic qi filled Mu Qianshang's body, and the consciousness of the very high heavens shook out. The 49 men and women appeared in the void once again. Ning Chun pulled Mu Qianshang's body and slashed open the illusory heaven and earth with his sword. He then flipped his palm and sent Mu Qianshang out of the battle. Outside the scripture pagoda, Mo Bai's figure flew out. Sky Sword Pavilion Master was shocked when he saw this, and leaped into the void to receive the former. Take good care of him. A familiar yet strange voice came from the last floor of the scripture pagoda. Shortly after, the scripture pagoda regained its silence. Sky Sword Pavilion Master looked at the unconscious disciple in his arms, and was puzzled. What happened? What did they encounter? Why didn't Jiming Marquis come out with them? In the illusory heaven and earth, the heavily injured demonic Qi stood still, and blocked the attack of the very high heavens once again. Fresh blood flowed out from his chest, and dyed his red robe red. The 49 Taoist sect leaders' consciousness were connected. After thousands of years of assimilation, they had become one. The terrifying soul power was almost solid. Even after leaving Mu Qianshang's body, it was still unstoppable. Fellow cultivators, it's the final move. When one person spoke, the 49 people spoke at the same time. One by one, the figures formed a sword with their fingers. The same action, the same move. The Taoist sect's secret technique reappeared in the mortal world. Demonic technique, Just as the demonic technique was about to be unleashed, Ning Chen staggered once again. His injuries erupted and his sword aura weakened. In the sky, the 49 figures merged into one, and the Taisher sword appeared. Man and sword streaked across the sky at extreme speed. With a clang, the sword pierced through the heart meridian and pierced through the body. At the same time, the Taisher soul-stealing technique entered the demonic Qi. At this moment, the demonic Qi's eyes suddenly opened. The heavily injured heart meridian automatically healed along with the wounds from before. Body of resentment. Suddenly, the mixed voices rang out once more, filled with shock. How is it? Are you satisfied with my Jiming Marquis body? Ning Chen coldly asked. So you don't have a human body, nor a demonic Qi. You're just an amalgamation of resentment. The very high heavens sighed. Is that important? Right now, you're trapped in the resentment of the common people. How are you going to escape? Ning Chen coldly asked. You can't trap the very high heavens. A mutated demonic Qi is still a demonic Qi. Evil will never be able to defeat righteous. The 49 men and women replied. Then I'll wait until the day you come out to prove your righteousness. Ning Chen laughed coldly. He walked to the side of the Taisher sword, and waved his hand to put it away. Then he walked out of the tower. Chapter 582. Outside the Sword Pavilion Scripture Tower, Ning Chen appeared. Seeing the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master healing Mu Qianshang, he walked over and asked, How is he? The Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master withdrew his hand, and let out a sigh of relief. He said, It's fine. There's a force sealing his consciousness. However, this force is currently dissipating. I believe that Qianshang will wake up soon. I'm sorry for causing trouble for the Sword Pavilion, said Ning Chen apologetically. There's nothing to apologize for. Although I don't know what you encountered in the Scripture Tower, the Knowledge Marquis was the first to send Qianshang out in the face of danger. This friendship is more valuable than any apology, said the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master. This is what the Knowledge Marquis should do, sighed Ning Chen. This time, it was he who had drawn Mu Qianshang into danger. So no matter what, he had to send Mu Qianshang out safely. Sister Qing Ning had said that although his temperament and ideals were different from the phoenix body, there was one thing he was inferior to. That was taking responsibility. Whatever he did, whether it was right or wrong, he had to take responsibility for it. He did not evade it. He did not avoid it. He had to do it. In truth, the most suitable person to stay behind was not him, but the phoenix body. In the original plan, the phoenix body had wanted to stay in the inner realm and continue to investigate the truth of the immortal corpses. As for going to sky beyond heaven to search for the Jade Lake water, that was left to him. The reason was very simple. Of the three bodies, the phoenix body's speed was unparalleled. He was the only one who could catch up to the immortal corpses. Comparatively speaking, he had devoured half of Xian Luo's body and was much stronger. He was the most suitable person to go to sky beyond heaven. Unfortunately, he had already entered the demonic tribulation, and his cultivation was unstable. He had no choice but to let the phoenix body go to sky beyond heaven in his place. He stayed behind to think of a way to survive the demonic tribulation as soon as possible. The second reason was to use his identity as the Alliance's military advisor as a cover to continue paying attention to the immortal corpses. In addition, the final agreement between them was that before the phoenix body returned, he would protect the people he treasured. Demons were never a race that kept their promises. But this time, he could not go back on his word. The cold moon moved west. Night was coming to an end, and the east was turning white. The sky gradually brightened. When the first rays of dawn fell, Mu Qianshang, who had been unconscious for a long time, finally woke up. His dazed eyes slowly regained their focus as he looked at the two people in front of him and asked in confusion, "What happened to me?" "It's a long story. I'll tell you when I have time. Rest well and recover first. I still have some things to do, so I'll be gone for a few days," Ningchen said. "And you can go." Mu Qianshang's eyes were strange, but he did not ask any further. "Pavilion Master, I'll take my leave first. I'll come and disturb you again in 2 days." Ningchen looked at the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master and politely bowed. "I will send someone to escort the Marquis," said the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master. "Thank you, Pavilion Master, but there's no need for the trouble," Ningchen replied. Then, he walked along the path he came from and left. "Qianshang, do you not remember what happened in the scripture pagoda?" The Heavenly Sword Pavilion's Pavilion Master asked as he watched Qianshang disappear. Mu Qianshang carefully thought for a moment before shaking his head. "After entering the final level of the scripture pagoda, I seem to have sensed an extremely terrifying aura. Then I lost consciousness. I don't have any memories of what happened after that, or how I came out. It was the Jiming Marquis who sent you out. Although he did not say anything, when he came out, there was a clear smell of blood on his body. Clearly, he had suffered heavy injuries," said the Heavenly Sword Pavilion Master. Mu Qianshang fell silent. After a long time, he softly sighed. "The Jiming Marquis who has harmed his friends time and time again has become stupid this time." Ningchen walked out of Blue Frost Valley. He turned around to look at the Thousand Snow Lake behind him. A moment later, he turned and left. Half a day later, Ningchen appeared in front of the entrance to Underworld in the misty forest. The dusky Underworld was abnormally quiet. Every step he took, he could clearly hear his own footsteps. The most familiar place was now so unfamiliar. Underworld had existed for an unknown period of time. Like the Eternal Night sect, it had long been untraceable. However, Underworld's golden age was even more distant than Taoism. In the human era, Underworld seemed to be just a mark. It did not display the glory that a great sect should have. Ningchen entered Underworld. Memories of the past flooded his mind. Every step he took was heavier than the previous. 3 bodies of one mind. Underworld had become a scar that could never be healed in Jiming's state. The pain was too deep and the obsession was too deep. Even the demon body could not escape. There was no difference between obsession and resentment. The demon body was the gathering of the resentment of all living beings. Similarly, the demon body could not escape from the obsession of Jiming's state. "Ghost woman, how can I save you?" Ningchen stopped in front of the Ruo River. The pain in his eyes could not be concealed. The river in the underworld stretched for hundreds of miles without end. The weak water in the river was extremely poisonous. Every tens of thousands of years, the yellow springs flower would bloom at the bottom of the river. Once a person consumed it, he or she would turn into an immortal living corpse, unable to die even if he or she wanted to. Demons actually have human emotions. Aren't they afraid of self-destruction? The voices of men and women mixed together could be heard. Ningchen didn't answer, and he just stood there silently without saying a word. The netherworld underworld has declined to this extent. The very high heavens spoke again. "You know about Underworld's past?" Ningchen frowned as he heard this. Taoism has a long history. The same goes for Underworld. It's a pity that the era of Taoism and Underworld has passed. The very high heavens sighed. Ningchen was silent. After a long time he said, "How about we make a deal? What deal? The very high heavens asked. You need a host body and I need Taoism's formation. You help me learn Taoism's formation, and I help you find a new host body. It's a fair deal. It benefits everyone. Ningchen calmly said. It's hard for us to trust a demon's promise. The very high heavens replied. Do you have any other choice? Although I can't destroy you now, you also don't have a way to escape. Cooperation is your only hope. Ningchen faintly said. The 49 men and women quietened down. After a while they said, Deal. Demon, I hope you can remember your promise. Ningchen nodded and didn't say anything else. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. The demon stood in front of the weak water without moving. It was unknown what he was waiting for, or why he was waiting. 3 days later, Devil Qi curled up behind Ji Ming, and a black phoenix appeared. The cry of a phoenix rang out, and the weak water flowed back into the phoenix's body. Ningchen brought the weak water, but didn't see the person he wanted to see. He silently left. This parting was engraved in his heart. Not long after the demon left, the dragon corpse pulled the immortal palanquin out of the fog forest. The ghost woman got off the palanquin and walked into underworld. The two people who had been drawn by fate had walked the same path again and again. However, the will of the heavens was always toying with them. They weren't willing to let the sinner get what he wanted. Luosha entered underworld and walked step by step into its depths. She was so beautiful in her red wedding dress that it was hard to look at her directly. 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. Luosha never took off her wedding dress. She walked through the endless years, constantly searching for something. In the barbarian palace, Wild stood in front of a courtyard and looked to the west. A rare trace of sadness flashed across her delicate and clean face. Princess, it's windy outside. Let's go in, said Hongzhu softly. Yes. Wild nodded and walked into the courtyard. He wouldn't be coming back. In Azure Frost Valley, Mabai was calmly waiting. Not long after, Ningchen appeared. He looked at him and said, Let's go. Mu Qianshang nodded and left with him. Did you obtain the Taoist formation? Yes. Then that's good. It was a simple conversation, and no one said too much. In an instant, they disappeared into the afterglow of the setting sun. In Peak Competition City, the two of them returned. When Qing Ming saw them, she let out a sigh of relief. In the past few days, she had been really worried that this matter would be exposed. Brother Xingchen, many thanks. Ningchen looked at the person in front of him. It's nothing. How did it go? Asked Luo Xingchen. I obtained the Yin-Yang formation. Ningchen's expression became serious. The Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign's injuries aren't light, and his cultivation base is far from its peak. This is a rare opportunity. However, with just my strength, I still can't block the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign. I'll have to trouble my 3 friends to help me. Knowing destiny, said Mu Qianshang suddenly. Oh, Ningchen didn't understand. When you're being polite, you look really disgusting, said Mu Qianshang indifferently. Ha! Ningchen smiled. Knowing destiny is being pretentious. Opening the yin-yang formation requires the power of yin and yang to work together. Brother Mu is a Taoist and your cultivation base is of the yin attribute. You're suitable to control the yang formation. As for Brother Jian Er, although you don't have the yang attribute, Desolate City's sword has always used brute force to break through all techniques. It's enough to control the yin formation. As for the rest, leave it to knowing destiny. What should I do? Asked Luo Xingchen. Ningchen smiled. Brother Xingchen, you can continue doing what you're used to doing. Shooting arrows behind people's backs. A gentleman can't shoot arrows behind his back. Isn't that what Brother Ning said before? Said Luo Xingchen. Did I say that? Sorry, I've already forgotten. Ningchen smiled. Not far away, Einer kicked her legs and said, You guys be careful. The 2 people who entered the formation with Ningchen that day still haven't woken up. When Ningchen heard this, he looked at the little girl and smiled helplessly. Einer, who exactly are you with? How can you side with an outsider? Sister Qing Ming said they're good people, replied Einer sweetly. I'm also a good person, said Ningchen seriously. You're a bad person. Einer wrinkled her nose. Children's words carry no harm. However, it's really pleasing to the ears. Luo Xingqian was in a good mood. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er listened to the little girl's words and only smiled. They didn't say anything more on this topic. Knowing Destiny's actions definitely couldn't be considered gentlemanly. It could even be said that he was unscrupulous. As an enemy, perhaps they had to be on guard at all times. However, as a friend, knowing Destiny was definitely someone who could be trusted. Brother Xingqian, I'll write down the method to open the yin-yang formation later. Although your cultivation body isn't suitable for entering the formation, the battle situation is constantly changing. If any of us three can't hold on, you still have to enter the formation in time and take over the battle, said Ningqian seriously. Understood. Luo Xingqian nodded. Chapter 583. In Tianheng City, the unconscious sword venerate was lying in a wheelchair, as a maid pushed him out to get some fresh air. In the Battle of the Windless Plains, the two sword venerates had both surpassed the limits of the mortal realm. However, their bodies were restricted and couldn't withstand the sword that surpassed the limits of the mortal realm. In the end, the Alcade King had died, and Mu Changa's soul had been severely injured. His meridians had been shattered, and he had become a living corpse. After losing the Alcade King, the peak powers of the Central Prefecture's sects had suffered heavy losses. Similarly, the Heaven's Sanctum's side couldn't withstand such a huge blow. The Heaven's Sanctum's war god was the belief of millions of martial artists in the Heaven's Sanctum. His status wasn't lower than a star venerate's. Not far away, Tianxi walked over and looked at Mu Changa, who was sleeping in the wheelchair, with a gloomy expression. For the future of Heaven's Sanctum, they had lost 10 human supremes and thousands of inborn experts, including the Sword Sovereign. They couldn't back down in a battle for survival. In order to fight for a place for the people of the Heaven's Sanctum, the Heaven's Sanctum had to win this battle. Star Venerate, Venerable Dong Sun said respectfully, is there really no way to recover from the Sword Venerate's injuries? Chao Tianqi asked. Venerable Dong Sun nodded silently. He had already tried his best. He had tried all the medicines from the pill tower, but they were all useless this time. Xiantian experts weren't true immortals, and their recovery abilities were limited. Once they were injured too severely, they couldn't recover. I understand. You can leave now, Chao Tianqi said. Venerable Dong Sun accepted the order and left. Changa, the strength of the inner world is much stronger than I imagined. My body is severely injured, and I can't use my full strength. What's more, the Heaven's Sanctum doesn't have much time left. I can't stay in seclusion to heal. Changa, I need your help, Chao Tianqi sighed. Soft whispers reverberated in the quiet courtyard. However, the sword venerable on the wheelchair did not react at all. He did not move at all. The Heaven's Sanctum's war god couldn't stand up again. In one Xian palace of competitive Peak City, Ningqian stood in front of the window and looked at the night sky outside. He hoped that tomorrow would be the final battle. As long as the Heaven's Sanctum's star venerate was defeated, the battle would end. You're actually helping this human demon. You're making the very high heavens more and more unable to understand you. A male and female voice rang out. Why not? Ningqian asked. I can feel that you don't care about the rise and fall of this mortal realm. So why do you still want to help? The very high heavens asked in confusion. It's just a promise to someone, Ningqian said calmly. Demons have never been a trustworthy race. You've once again impressed us, the 49 men and women said in unison. There's no need for others to judge the words and actions of those in the knowing destiny state. Very high heavens, if you don't want to disappear from this world with me in tomorrow's battle, it's best that you lend me a hand, Ningqian said indifferently. If that heavenly palace star venerate's injuries are as you said, then you have at least a 60% chance of winning tomorrow's battle, the very high heavens replied. If a treading immortal expert is so easily defeated, he wouldn't be a treading immortal expert. Do you really think we have a 60% chance of winning tomorrow's battle? Ningqian said coldly. If you're in danger, you can hand over control of your body to me, and I'll help you escape, the very high heavens suggested. Do you think that's possible? Or do you think that knowing destiny's state is that stupid? Very high heavens, you and I are one now. We're bound together for good or ill. Hiding our strength isn't beneficial to either of us. Ningchen mocked. Demons, it's hard to change your greedy nature. You've already grasped the yin-yang formation, and your body contains the phoenix origin and demon qi, which are of opposite attributes. You alone are enough to open the formation. Even if the three of them die in tomorrow's battle, nothing will happen to you. The very high heavens replied. Ningchen sneered. Same to you. There are countless people in this world who claim to be righteous, but in the end, the one who has to risk his life for this mortal realm is me, a demon. Very high heavens, you don't have the qualifications to judge me. No one has the qualifications to do so. Furthermore, Mu Qianshang and the others won't die in battle, nor do they have any obligation to die in battle. With me here, even if everyone in the mortal realm dies, they won't die. Madman, the 49 people said. Very high heavens, don't judge a demon with the mindset of a human. I'm willing to keep my promise, because I'm still willing. However, a demon's patience is limited. When the day comes when I'm no longer willing, you'll know what a true demon is, Ningchen said coldly. You can't kill the very high heavens, the 49 people said calmly. Is that so? Ningchen sneered. I can't kill you, but what about the treading immortal realm? Do you think that if I withdraw from this battle in exchange for your life, and the peace of the Eastern Domain, that Heavenly Mansion's Star Sovereign will agree? The 49 Dao sect leaders fell silent. After a long time they said, What exactly do you want? An absolute life-saving method. Not only my life, but also Mu Qianshang and the others, Ningchen said coldly. Dao sect taboo, very high taboo sword. The 49 people said slowly. The next day, the sovereigns gathered in the conference hall. Ningchen looked at the human sovereigns in front of him and said, Let's go. Yes. The sovereigns accepted the order and left the hall together. Advisor, do we really not need the help of human sovereigns? Zhao Liusu asked worriedly. Ningchen glanced at the three people waiting outside the hall and said indifferently, They are the strongest human sovereigns. These friends who had been in the same boat in the past. Although their cultivations were only at the half-step human sovereign realm, their battle strength would not lose to anyone. Most importantly, they were trustworthy. Tacit understanding required absolute trust. Only with these people could he be at ease in handing over his back in battle. Ningchen walked out of the conference hall and looked at the three people. He said softly, Once the time is up, we will leave immediately. What if we can't win? Mu Qianshang asked. Don't worry about anything. Just run, Ningchen said without hesitation. Ji Ming, did you really learn the sword from master? Jian Er sighed. Comparing me to Senior Mu Bai is smearing Senior Mu Bai's reputation. Brother Jian Er, don't ask too much of me, Ningchen smiled. Don't worry, I support you. Luo Xingchen patted Ningchen's shoulder. If you can't win, then run. That's right and proper. Preserving your life is the most important thing. Jian Er helplessly shook his head. He was about to be brainwashed by these fellows. At the front lines of the two armies, the Alliance's human sovereigns suddenly attacked. The Heavenly Mansion's army, which had originally held the advantage, immediately fell into a crisis and was forced to retreat. Within Eternal Heaven City, Xiao Libi, who was repairing the teleportation formation, immediately ordered the human sovereigns of the 10 cities to reinforce the front lines. The human sovereigns left one by one. At this time, a secret report was sent directly into Chao Tianqi's hands. The contents of the letter were very simple. There were only a few numbers, but it was the most anticipated result. Jiming Marquis had left competitive Peak City and was heading to the front lines of the two armies. Minister Tian, you guard Eternal Heaven City. I'll go kill Jiming Marquis. Chao Tianqi walked out. Xiao Libi's eyes turned serious. Star Sovereign, the situation isn't right. It might be a trap. We can't miss this opportunity. Their human sovereigns are tied down by our human sovereigns. It'll be very difficult for them to escape. As long as we kill Jiming Marquis, this war will quickly end, said Chao Tianqi coldly. Why don't we send someone to probe first? With Jiming Marquis scheming, There's no way he doesn't know the danger of leaving the city, suggested Xiao Libi. There's no time. Minister Tian, don't worry. Even if I'm injured, I'm not someone 3 human sovereigns can stop. Moreover, the Alliance's human sovereigns can't just appear out of nowhere. Even if I can't kill Jiming Marquis, I won't be in danger. As he spoke, Chao Tianxi stepped into the air and instantly disappeared into the northern horizon. Xiao Libi didn't have time to stop him. Looking towards the north, the worry in his eyes grew. In the northern part of the Central Plains, 1,000 miles away from the front lines of the 2 armies, Ning Chen was walking alone. Suddenly the pressure in the world dropped. The sky that had been clear just a moment ago was now covered in dark clouds. Heavenly Minister descends. Ning Chen softly muttered. Treading immortals were truly much stronger than human sovereigns. They hadn't even appeared, but their auras were already so shocking. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a green arrow shot into the sky. Its powerful might instantly pierced through the dark clouds, creating a hole with a radius of 1,000 feet. In the next moment, the arrow's power dissipated and a fairy-like woman descended from the sky. Her white robes fluttered as the azure arrow in her hand shattered. It's just the 4 of you? Asked Chao Tianxi calmly. It's enough to kill you. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er walked out from the left and right. In the distance, starlight gathered on the star-scar heavenly bow, and an azure arrow appeared once more. Jiming Marquis, you've been smart your entire life. But today's mistake will cause you to be buried here forever, said Chao Tianxi coldly. There's no point in talking. Let's fight, said Ning Chen indifferently. As you wish. There was a flash of moonlight as Chao Tianxi took the initiative to attack. A powerful palm energy tore through the air. Yin and Yang, activate formation. Genesis Supreme appeared and Yin and Yang appeared. Ning Chen condensed his Yuan energy and slashed it across his sword. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er simultaneously circulated their qi. In an instant, one black and one white light soared into the sky. A Taiji diagram appeared in the air, and the Yin and Yang formation was activated. The Yin and Yang formation rotated endlessly. Chao Tianxi entered the formation, and immediately felt the pressure. His palm energy weakened. With a clang, the 2 formations rotated. Mu Qianshang was the first to receive the attack. The flames of his mountain and river sword domain soared. As the palm energy passed by, its power was reduced by more than half. Then the Yin formation rotated, and a powerful sword light met the attack. With one move, the 2 of them received each other's moves. Yin and Yang worked together, and their powerful palm energy dissipated. An extraordinary formation and exquisite battle technique. In just one move, Chao Tianxi's expression became grave. What a good Jiming Marquis. Not only did he bring the Yin and Yang formation out of competitive Peak City, he even evolved it to such a degree. This person could not be allowed to live. Ha! Thinking of this, Chao Tianxi condensed his qi. Ignoring his internal injuries, he forcefully activated his cultivation technique. In an instant, his azure hair broke free and wildly danced in the air. The power of an immortal trampling exploded. Chapter 584. In Xihua Mountain, the flames of war were ignited. The 3 swords of Yin and Yang locked onto the Star Venerables. In the distance, Star Mark drew his bow, ready to provide assistance at any time. In an instant the atmosphere froze. Within the array, Zhao Tianxi's wildly dancing black hair fell down. An indescribable pressure spread out. Be careful. At the center of the 2 formations, Ning Chen's expression turned serious as he spoke. Mu Qianshang and Jian Er nodded, fully focused, preparing for the real battle. Qingxua cripples the world. A moment later, Chao Tianxi made his move. The moonlight flashed, and the vast power of his palm went straight for the knowing destiny state. The sword and palm clashed. Yin and Yang moved on the Taisher sword as it took on the might of the celestial trampling. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the formation unloaded the force. The mountains within 100 li collapsed and huge rocks flew everywhere, smashing open huge craters. Within the formation, Ning Chen took half a step back. His sword condensed yang fire and slashed out. The snowflakes melted and condensed again in the blink of an eye. Chao Tianqi's palm power was unparalleled. His body was covered in wind and snow, and his power was shocking. Skybreaker. With the support of yin and yang, Taisha roared. Sharp sword chi cut through the air. The sword light shone, and Chao Tianqi turned his palm to meet it head-on. With a bang, the sword chi scattered in all directions and disappeared into nothingness. Bloody path. In the aftermath, the sword light appeared again. The extremely fast sword arrived in the blink of an eye. Clang! Ning Chen's palm energy blocked the sword, and the sword couldn't move an inch. Ning Chen shouted, and the black and white airflow on the sword spun rapidly, increasing the sharpness of the divine weapon. Chao Tianqi's face turned cold as he unleashed his palm energy. With a loud bang, the person in front of him was sent flying. Being restrained in one move, the phoenix manifested. The knowing destiny body quickly turned back and turned into a flowing light, reappearing in the world at top speed. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 moves had been exchanged at extreme speed. Sword chi and palm force swayed in all directions, and the clanging sounds were incessant. Suddenly, the red coat retreated, and the yang formation arrived in the blink of an eye. The sudden change in sword momentum was unparalleled. Jian Er, who had been gathering power for a long time, slashed out with the broken sword in his hand. Heaven and earth within 100 miles fell with a sound. The sky shook, and Chao Tianqi took half a step back. The moment the sword chi entered his body, he pushed his palm again, and with a bang, he shattered the sword chi. The heavenly palace star venerate was strong, so strong that it could not be shaken. Every move of the heavenly palace star venerate, who had regained the power to trample the heavens, contained a heaven-shaking might that could not be blocked. Sword style, one sword 10,000 calamities. Another sword move was unleashed, causing the void to shatter, reaching dozens of miles away. The shocking sword might caused heaven and earth to mourn. As the sword passed, yin and yang rotated again. The inky white sword realm descended. The snow sword passed through, and the inky sword light broke through the air. 2 streaks of sword light, one in front and one behind, one yin and one yang. The quality of the sword wills were of completely different attributes. They split the heavens and the earth and shattered everything. Void destruction. Chao Tianqi's expression was solemn as he raised his slender hand. Using the space 3 feet in front of him as the boundary, the void in front of him was annihilated and turned into void. There was a shocking explosion, and the shockwaves roared out. The 2 people in the formation were forced back several steps, their arms dyed red. The 2 of them retreated, and Hong Yi shivered once more. Taisha refined yin and yang, and with the support of the formation, his speed increased by several times. Even someone as strong as the heavenly mansion star venerate didn't dare to be careless in the face of a sword that had surpassed the pinnacle and was closing in on the only sword. Sounds of earth-shattering collisions rang out. Shihua Mountain seemed to have suffered the wrath of the heavens. Rocks flew everywhere, and the calamity of the end of the world was shocking. At this point, heaven and earth resonated. Every move had the power to shake the heavens and earth, and every move could stir up the changes of wind and thunder. The 3 swords of the divine prefecture that stood at the pinnacle reappeared, the glory of the battle against the lord of the underworld. Gradually, the 4 of them were dyed red. White clothes and red clothes were in front of them, and they were so beautiful that it was intoxicating. The 2 sides in the formation each had their own persistence. One was for the people of the heavenly mansion, and the other was for the promise they had made. No one was willing to back down. The battle continued to cycle. 1 sword advanced, 2 retreated. They attacked and defended well, and they suffered injuries at the same time. They didn't show any openings. On the other side, the heavily injured Chao Tianqi no longer held back for the people of the heavenly mansion. He didn't care about the consequences of destroying his own foundation, and he used all his remaining strength to fight the 3 swords of the pinnacle. The battle reached a climax, and blood splattered on the formation. The 4 of them retreated together, their clothes dyed red. Jiming Marquis, you're too confident. You want to kill me with this formation? Foolish. After a long battle, Chao Tianqi calmed himself down and raised his hand. Wind and snow poured down like a waterfall, and he used the celestial trampling technique again. Heavenly clear snow, chasing waves sinking death. Waves of snow poured out, and yin and yang were out of balance. The moment the three of them met the attack, they were all heavily injured. Blood splattered, and they were forced back a few steps. The yin and yang formations became unstable. Sword 2 and Mu Qianshang didn't care about their injuries, and they stabbed their swords into the ground to stabilize the formation. Nirvana! The battle was tipping. Ningchen took a step and leaped into the air. Taisher slashed, and rays of sword light crisscrossed out. The magnificent sword Qi slashed towards the heavenly mansion, star venerate with the momentum of falling from the heavens. It was a move that surpassed the limit. Chao Tianxi raised his palm to block the move, and he took a dozen steps back. After a dozen steps, the sword will dissipated. Chao Tianxi suppressed the surging qi and blood in his body, and his palm gathered the power of wind and snow to counter the move. The yang formation rotated, and the sword realm blocked the wind and snow. In an instant, the mountains and rivers collapsed and quickly dissipated. The aftershock caused Mu Qianshang to fly back a dozen feet, and he vomited blood. Opposite him, Chao Tianxi's mouth was also dyed red, and the Jingyuan qi in his body became more and more unstable. Sword form. At this moment, knowing destiny and Sword 2's figures flashed, and they stepped into the air. The swords on their swords combined for the first time. In an instant, the wind and clouds on their swords changed, and rays of sword light gathered from all directions. The yin and yang swirled, and the sound of swords resounded in the world. The move of returning to the origin was launched. Thousand swords greet the ancestor. Amidst the roar, the Taiji formation whirled rapidly, and an endless stream of swords fell like rain. With the power of the two, the seventh sword of proving heaven finally appeared. The sword closest to Tao was limitless, infinite, and unknown. The wind and clouds turned into swords, and the sand turned into swords. Everything in the world turned into swords. 10,000 swords approached him, and Chao Tianxi's expression was unprecedentedly serious. He raised his slender hand, and his protective genuine qi surged out, blocking the rays of sword light. The clanging of swords was incessant. Suddenly, a sword broke through the qi shield, and pierced through his body, dyeing his white clothes red. After blocking 10,000 swords, one sword was hit, and the last sword broke through the qi shield, instantly injuring the heavenly mansion star venerate. Illusion bubbles. An opportunity appeared. Within the yang formation, Mu Qianshang endured his injuries, and pushed his body to the limit. The sword realm spread out, and the final move appeared again. Suddenly, bubbles rose between heaven and earth, and it was difficult to distinguish between reality and illusion. After a while, the bubbles burst, and the dreamland collapsed. Everything in the bubbles disappeared along with the dreamland. Blood spurted out, and spilled onto the ground. Chao Tianxi staggered and coughed up blood. With new injuries and old wounds, the heavenly mansion star venerate's strength was getting weaker and weaker. At this moment, the star mark that had been gathering for a long time shone brightly, and an arrow pierced through the air, and swept towards the battle in an instant. As the danger approached, Chao Tianxi gathered his strength, and blocked the green arrow light. Suddenly, another change occurred, and an arrow appeared within the arrow, and a golden arrow light broke out from the green arrow, and instantly pierced the former's chest. After a few steps, blood flowed out from his chest, and dyed his already red clothes red again. Seeing that the former's defeat was certain, Ning Chen's eyes flashed a little, and he was puzzled. The heavenly mansion star venerate's injuries were more serious than expected. In the battle, Chao Tianxi barely stabilized his body, and immediately vomited another mouthful of blood. Chaotic true qi rushed out from his body, and brought out a waterfall of blood mist. In just 1 year, as a one-star venerate, Chao Tianxi had taken on too much. Breaking the Netherworld King's boundary, breaking into the immortal execution forbidden land, blocking the 10-star venerates of the Alliance, entering the Yin-Yang Great Formation, and not long ago, accidentally fighting with the patrolling Immortal Corpse. The continuous battles caused his injuries to accumulate, and his body was already on the verge of collapse. However, for the future of the heavenly mansion, he suppressed his injuries again and again, and held on until now. However, this time, he could not hold on anymore. Jiming Marquis, I've lost, but the heavenly mansion cannot lose, so I cannot let you live. As soon as he finished speaking, Chao Tianqi's eyes flashed with determination. He gave up half of his body and stomped on the ground. In an instant, hundreds of miles of land caved in. Raging waves of snow rolled out. Hundreds of miles of land were frozen, and thousands of miles of snow drifted. He used the last of his strength to make a move that would take him down with him. Even if he died, he would drag the enemy of the heaven's sanctum into hell. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed. Heaven and earth wailed. 100 li around them froze and space froze. Ning Chen's expression sank. Phoenix flames rose from his sword, gathering the power of yin and yang. He forcefully opened up a path in the ice and snow. Then he shouted at the two of them, "Run! No, if we leave, the yin and yang of the yin-yang great formation will be unbalanced. If we leave, we have to leave together." Mu Qianshang was unwilling to retreat. "There's no time. I have my own way of escaping. Hurry and leave. You'll only be a burden to me." Ning Chen angrily roared, and Genesis Supreme reversed yin and yang in his hand. The Taiji diagram in the sky exploded, and the powerful impact instantly sent the two of them flying. "Let's go." 3,000 feet away, the two of them landed on the ground. Sword 2 grabbed Mu Qianshang and used the momentum to rush out. The two of them had just left when the ground around them began to freeze. The path of life had dissipated, and the world had turned white. There was not the slightest trace of life left. 100 miles away, the two of them reappeared. Mu Qianshang forcibly broke free from Sword 2's grasp and was about to charge back into the battle. "Do you want to die?" Sword 2's figure flashed, blocking his path. Out of the way. The furious Mu Qianshang no longer cared about reason or friendship. He slashed out with his snow sword, pushing Sword 2 aside. Sword 2's expression changed, and he once more blocked the path with his broken sword. "Are you crazy? If you go in now, you'll just be sending yourself to death." Scram! Mu Qianshang's snow sword no longer held back. He slashed out, forcibly opening a path. Knowing that Mu Qianshang wouldn't listen to his advice, Sword 2 no longer said anything. He raised his sword to block, using all his strength to prevent him from going in. Behind the two of them, the world had already turned into a world of ice and snow. Looking around, everything was white. An immortal treading a mortal's life-risking move was so terrifying that it made people tremble. Within the endless ice and snow, heaven and earth, laws and myriad phenomena were all annihilated into nothingness. "You, who are you?" "I am not a person. I am the very high heavens." Within the ice prison, the white-haired life-knowing expert slowly spoke. A yin and yang formation appeared around him, creating a pure land within the world of ice and snow. "Why did you save me?" "Because I wanted to save you." Ning Chen's eyes changed once more, and his white hair turned black. He suppressed the very high heavens consciousness and calmly said, Chapter 585. In the only pure land in the ice hell, Jiming's phoenix energy and demonic qi surged around him. There was no longer any human emotion in his cold eyes. "You're a demon." Chao Tianqi looked at the person in front of him in shock. "Does it matter what I am?" "The heavenly mansion star venerable you've lost," Ning Chen said coldly. "The winner takes all. You shouldn't have let me live," Chao Tianqi said weakly as he coughed violently. Blood kept dripping from the corner of his mouth. Seeing that the space around them had stabilized, Ning Chen withdrew his aura and said calmly, "I don't want to face a crazy minister of heaven. If you die, the war will only be more intense. A living heavenly mansion star venerable is more valuable." "You want to use me to threaten minister of heaven?" Chao Tianqi said. "Threaten? You underestimate Ji Ming. Star venerable. It's time to tell us why the heavenly mansion started this war." "There's no point in hiding it anymore," Ning Chen said. "To survive." Tiredness flashed across Chao Tianqi's eyes as he said slowly, "Soon, the Tianfu star will be destroyed. Jiming Marquis, no matter what happens to me, this war will not stop." Even if I lose the Star Venerables, the Tianfu Star still has the Tianxiang Emperor. Our strength will not lose to the Five Territory Alliance. So, something really happened to the Heavenly Mansion. Ning Chen squinted his eyes. He had felt that something was wrong. The Heavenly Mansion had to pay a huge price to invade the 5 regions. This wasn't good news. It meant that the Heavenly Mansion would never admit defeat. They would fight to the death to survive. Chao Tianxi was right. The Heavenly Mansion had lost the Star Venerable, Minister of Heaven, and 1 star. The inner world still didn't have the upper hand. After thinking for a long time, Ning Chen said seriously, "Star Venerable, the Heavenly Mansion will retreat. I promise to give the people of the Heavenly Mansion a place to live." Chao Tianxi's body shook. He looked at Ning Chen and said, "Can your words represent the 5 Territory Alliance? Even though the Heavenly Mansion doesn't have as many people as the inner world, we still need a region to accommodate the people of the Heavenly Mansion. Giving up an entire region is impossible. Once the commoners of the Heavenly Sanctum are moved to the inner realm, they will be scattered across the 5 regions. Furthermore, the Heavenly Sanctum's army will also be dispersed. Whether it's you or that Heaven Minister, neither of you can interfere, nor can you summon them again for any reason," said Ning Chen. "Impossible. What you're doing is destroying the Heavenly Sanctum's inheritance." Chao Tianxi's expression sank, and he directly refused. According to this arrangement, it wouldn't be long before the Heaven Palace was completely assimilated by the inner realm. The name of the Heaven Palace would only exist in name. Star Sovereign, you have to think this through. There isn't much time left for the Heavenly Sanctum. Although the inner realm doesn't have the advantage in this war, it isn't certain that they will lose. In addition, it won't be easy to send the people of the Heavenly Sanctum to the inner realm. I don't think 3 or 5 years will be enough. Star Sovereign, do you want to save more people, or do you want to stick to the so-called inheritance of the Heavenly Sanctum? Think carefully, said Ning Chen coldly. After hearing Ning Chen's words, Chao Tianxi's expression changed again and again. He said in a deep voice, "How can you guarantee that the 5 Territory Alliance and the other sects won't wantonly slaughter or make things difficult for my people after I disperse the army of the Heavenly Sanctum?" Ning Chen smiled faintly and said, "Star Sovereign, this is your problem, not mine. As long as you can intimidate the other sects, the people of the Heavenly Sanctum will naturally be safe." Chao Tianxi was silent. After a long time, he raised his head and said with a burning gaze, "As long as the inner realm agrees to peacefully accept the people of the Heavenly Sanctum, I agree to withdraw my army. Star Sovereign, words are no guarantee. Your existence is ultimately too dangerous. You and I both know the consequences of letting a tiger return to the mountains. Please swear an oath as proof," said Ning Chen calmly. Chao Tianxi sighed, and immediately swore an oath with the heavens as proof. The oath merged with the heavens and the earth, and was witnessed by the heavens. Ning Chen smiled and said, "I will arrange for the formal peace talks as soon as possible. In 10 days, the 2 armies will respectfully await your arrival." "Jiming Marquis, I can't attack you now. Can you tell me whether Mu Jin is dead or alive?" asked Chao Tianxi softly. "She Mu Jin? Star Sovereign, don't worry. She is still alive. Perhaps you will be able to see her soon," said Ning Chen honestly. "Thank you." Chao Tianxi sighed. "Star Sovereign, I will take my leave. Be careful on the way back. I think after the peace talks we will have a lot to talk about." Ning Chen smiled as he spoke. Then he turned around and left. Chao Tianxi sighed again, and coughed a few times. His figure gradually disappeared in the ice and snow. 100 miles away, the sound of swords was ear-piercing. Luo Xingchen quickly rushed over to stop the 2 from fighting. "Jian Heir, Mu Qianshang, if you continue fighting, prepare to collect Jiming's corpse," shouted Luo Xingchen angrily. "Move aside." Mu Qianshang pushed Jian Heir away with his sword, and directly rushed into the ice and snow hell ahead. Jian Heir and Luo Xingchen followed behind, and disappeared into the ice and snow. At this moment, a red figure walked out from the depths of the ice and snow world. Looking at the 3 people rushing over, she said softly, "Everyone, where are you going?" Mu Qianshang stopped, his eyes filled with disbelief. Good friend, why are you looking at me like that? Shouldn't you be happy that I'm fine? Ningchen smiled. As expected, good people don't live long, but scourges live for 1,000 years. Jiming, your life is really not ordinary. Luo Xingchen suppressed the joy in his heart, but his mouth was still unforgiving. It's good that you're alive. Jian was a man of few words. He simply said one sentence, and did not say anything else. Let's go. We'll talk on the way. Ningchen smiled. The three nodded and moved forward together, rushing toward Competitive Edge City Conference Hall. The Venerables had been waiting patiently for a long time. The moment Ningchen entered the hall, many pairs of eyes immediately looked over, waiting for the answer they wanted. The Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign is not dead. However, the Heavenly Mansion will retreat soon, said Ningchen calmly. The Venerables in the hall all shook. Regret, shock, and confusion. Advisor, what happened? Asked Zhao Liusu. The Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign has already agreed to the peace talks. Ningchen didn't talk about the details of the battle. He only told them about the agreement he had reached with the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign. Then he looked at the Venerables in front of him and said, Venerables, this is the best result for the 5 regions. I don't want to see anyone destroy this peace talk. There's no problem with accommodating the Heavenly Mansion's commoners, but the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign's existence will be the greatest threat to the inner realm. If she doesn't die, there will be no end of trouble in the future, said Venerables Qingyu. She has already sworn that as long as you don't target the Heavenly Mansion's commoners, she won't appear in front of you again. She also won't gather any more soldiers, said Ningchen indifferently. The Venerables frowned slightly. They were quite dissatisfied and uneasy. Ningchen ignored their thoughts and walked out of the hall. Venerables, the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign only agreed to retreat because she wants to save more commoners. Don't think that she will be manipulated by others. I think she knows better than anyone that as long as she is alive, the Heavenly Mansion's commoners can live better lives. That's all I have to say. Everyone think about it carefully. Ningming left. The Venerables present looked at each other, each with their own thoughts. On the main seat, Zhao Liusu sighed inside. In truth, as long as the inner realm didn't make things difficult for the Heavenly Mansion's commoners, the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign wouldn't be a threat. There was no need to say what these Venerables were thinking. If the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign died, and the Heavenly Mansion's army was dismissed, the Heavenly Mansion's commoners' fates could be imagined. In Wenxian Palace, when Ningchen returned, Yi'er was the first to run over to greet him. She looked left and right. When she saw that he wasn't missing an arm or a leg, she ran off to the side to play. Ningchen smiled. This girl had been out for quite some time. When he had time, he should send her home. How are your injuries? Qingning walked up and softly asked. They're fine. I'll be fine after resting for a while, replied Ningchen. I've already heard about today's battle from Mu Qianshang and the others. I don't understand. Why did you leave the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign alive? Asked Qingning. A balance. Ningchen calmly said. It's a balance between the inner realm and the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign. The current situation is actually very clear. Aside from the Heavenly Mansion Star Sovereign's own strength, the Heavenly Mansion's army and the Inner Realm's army are in a stalemate. If they continue fighting, no one will gain an advantage. In order to survive, the Heavenly Mansion will not retreat. In order to protect their own interests, the Inner Realm's sects won't easily back down. The biggest losers in this war are undoubtedly the commoners of the Heavenly Mansion and the Inner Realm. In the end, it's very likely that the Central Plains will be split apart, and then both sides will temporarily stop fighting. This is the most undesirable result, and also the result with the greatest hidden danger. Once the Heavenly Mansion or the Inner Realm starts fighting again, the flames of war will never stop. Chao Tianqi wants the commoners of the Heavenly Mansion to have a place to live. For this, he is willing to make any sacrifice. This is the best opportunity for peace. Among the conditions I proposed, the Heavenly Mansion's sects will lose the most benefits. The root of this is that the Heavenly Mansion's army is made up of the various sects of the Heavenly Mansion. Disbanding the Heavenly Mansion's army means disbanding the various sects of the Heavenly Mansion. Chao Tianxi is willing to give up his status as a star sovereign for the sake of the people of the Heavenly Mansion. However, not all the Heavenly Mansion's sovereigns are willing to make such a sacrifice. In addition, after the peace talks, the Heavenly Mansion's sovereigns will need someone to intimidate them. Otherwise, it will be quite troublesome. Finally, I left Chao Tianxi behind to hang a sword over the heads of the sects of the Central Plains and the other regions. Whether Chao Tianxi lives or dies has no effect on the commoners of the inner realm. What will really affect is the ambitions of the sects of the 5 regions. Back then, the Purple Sky Palace and the Demon Buddha took advantage of the fact that most of the cultivators of the Divine Prefecture died in the Great Tribulation of the Underworld to seize the source of the Divine Prefecture. The lesson is still fresh in my mind. I don't want to see something similar happen again. During the process of the commoners of the Heavenly Mansion integrating into the inner realm, if anyone takes the opportunity to do something that angers the heavens, they will have to carefully consider whether they have the life to withstand the anger of a cultivator who has stepped into the immortal realm. After hearing Ning Chen's words, Qing Ning fell silent. After a long time, she sighed softly and said, "Putting aside their positions, the Heavenly Mansion's star sovereign is indeed worthy of respect. He is worthy of the name of one-star Tianxi. If there comes a day when the inner realm is also faced with the threat of destruction, how many of the sovereigns of the inner realm will be willing to sacrifice so much for the commoners of the 5 regions?" You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.